is central to the department's mandate and is explicitly addressed in its policy and planning instruments, including the IRP and the electricity pricing policy, and ongoing intergovernmental initiatives with the National Energy Regulator of South Africa, NERSA, and municipalities through COCTA and National Treasury. The department's affordability strategy is structured around three core principles, namely universal access, protection of vulnerable customers, consumers, and cost-reflective but socially balanced pricing. In terms of strategies, the department continues to implement free basic electricity policy, which provides 50 kilowatt-hour of free electricity per month to registered indigenous households. This policy forms part of the social protection system and ensures that poor households have access to a basic level of electricity for lighting, cooking, and communication. The department is also working with municipalities to improve the accuracy and coverage of indigenous registers to ensure that qualifying households are not excluded from this benefit. The current pricing regime also applies an inclining block tariff structure approved by NERSA, where low-usage households pay a lower rate per unit, whilst higher consumption attracts progressively higher tariffs. This structure directly protects low-income consumers and aligns with the principle of cross-subsidization, ensuring that the poor are not disproportionately burdened by electricity price increases. In addition, the department's ongoing work under the Universal Access Program, formerly the Integrated National Electrification Program, continues to expand affordable grid and off-grid connections. The IRP 2025 confirms the department's commitment to ensuring that the expansion of generation and transmission capacity does not compromise affordability for end users, particularly vulnerable households. In terms of plans, the department is reviewing the energy pricing policy, which will align tariff setting, subsidy allocation, and municipal support to ensure sustainable cost recovery while safeguarding social equity. This EPP will guide NERSA and electricity distributors in assessing the socio-economic impacts of tariff applications and in aligning tariff increases with inflation-adjusted affordability benchmarks. The department also monitors the impact of ESCOM's annual tariff determinations through an affordability assessment mechanism, which evaluates how tariff adjustments affect households across income deciles. Furthermore, the department is pursuing initiatives to reduce the structural cost drivers of electricity, including supply inefficiencies, transmission losses, and dependency on high-cost generation sources. The IRP 2025 outlines a generation mix that diversifies supply through renewables, gas, nuclear, and storage technologies to achieve long-term price stability and lower overall system costs. Honorable members, through these measures, the department seeks to balance fiscal sustainability with social justice, ensuring that no household is denied access to electricity due to poverty or unemployment. Electricity affordability remains at the heart of the department's commitment to building a secure, inclusive, and equitable energy future for all. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Is there a supplementary question, Honorable Modise?
No, thank you, Chair, and thank you so much, Minister, for the detailed response. I just want to be ambitious and check with you if there's a time frame to review the energy pricing policy, and do you think the beneficiaries of free basic electricity could increase anytime soon? Thanks.
Over to Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Modise. First is just to acknowledge that the price of electricity is untenable. It undermines business competitiveness, and it also erodes the disposable income of households. And as I've mentioned, it has got a disproportionate impact on the poor. So we've got an appreciation of the adverse impact of the price of electricity. Just to put it into context, since 2007 to 2024, that is a period spanning around about 17 years. Electricity tariffs have increased by 937%, compared to inflation increases over the same period by 155%. So it's becoming increasingly unaffordable, and that's why access is an important part of our strategy. And to your question, Honorable Modise, yes, we have set ourselves a timeline of achieving this policy position by first quarter of next year. Of course, we need to democratize the discussions with all the players across the length and breadth of our country and the various sectors in the South African economy, so that they feel that they are part of the co-creation of this revised policy stance. And yes, you are right, Honorable Modise, if you look at the policy on free basic electricity, it says that we provide about 50 kilowatt hour per month to low-income households, all those who qualify as per the indigent policy of various municipalities. But what we know is that consumption patterns have changed. Is that an average low-income household consumes on average about 200 kilowatts of electricity per month. So if our desire is to ensure that there's a 100% subsidization, then we need to increase the quantum by an additional 150%. 150 kilowatt. But remember that this money comes from somewhere. It has to come from the fiscus. The fiscal envelope is constrained. So it's not our desire to go to the Minister of Finance to ask for additional financing. But we know that the current technologies, if you like, off-grid technologies, hybrid solution like solar and PV, we're doing one of the first phases of these interventions in Musina, will be able to significantly reduce the price of electricity. We'll get to a point where we think that first we will address the price, and secondly, we think we will be in a position through technology interventions within the current fiscal envelope to increase what we give to poor households. But what is important is for municipalities to have credible and robust indigent registers. What we know is that the biggest challenge is that a significant proportion of deserving households that are qualifying for indigent are not receiving that allocation, because that comes as a grant to municipalities and gets to be reallocated to other spending pressures in municipalities, and when the people who are deserving are not getting that privilege of getting a free basic electricity. So we'll also work on the mechanisms on how you are going to ensure that the free basic electricity gets direct to the consumer. It doesn't go through a conduit and then there's leakage in that conduit. So the answer is by first quarter of next year, and then we are doing an analysis on how best to increase the quantum without asking for new money. Technology allows us to do that, Honorable Modise. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Minister. The next follow-up question is from Honorable Ryder.
Thank you very much, Chairperson. Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, thanks for your answer, but there's an entire entity that's supposed to protect us from Eskom, and we've been financially bullied by Eskom with the full support of NERSA. The Energy Regulation Act specifically states in Section 1A that prices must be, and I quote, must enable an efficient licensee to recover the full cost of its licensed activities, including a reasonable margin or return, end quote. Now, it says efficient there, but Eskom stopped being efficient somewhere back in the 2000s, in the mid-2000s. The increases are unreasonable if we are expected to be paying for deliveries of stones instead of coal, and to pay 238,000 Rand for a mop. We are being asked to fund corruption on an ongoing basis. Minister, why do you not insist that NERSA does their job of holding Eskom accountable, rather than just being an enabler for Eskom's abuse? Thank you, Minister.
Thanks, Honorable Ryder. Over to you, Minister.
Well, thank you for the question, Honorable Riders. I think your general observations are correct, is that the consumer is paying the penalties for inefficiencies and leakage. I'm the one who has made a public admission that when I got to be assigned in the role going to the various power stations, I did uncover a lot of leakage. And I must say that there had been a web of rent-seeking individuals who were just milking the ESCOM, milking ESCOM dry. And as you know that we've been able to place before the courts some of these individuals, charges have been preferred, and some of them have been sentenced, and some of the cases are ongoing. So I do accept that there's been a rent-seeking, a parasitic relationship that people had with the ESCOM, and ultimately is the end consumer that bears that responsibility. So we continue to do that work. I accept that criticism. And then the second one is that we think that the revision of the policy is going to help NERSA to compute, if you like, a formula on how that policy gets expression in its methodological analysis. Remember that NERSA doesn't set the policy. The policy is set by the shareholder, or if you like, the executive. And like I said, we're going to canvass it, and that policy then gets to be codified in a formula that NERSA applies. I must say that indeed we get into a stage where we're getting to a stage where we are able to find a price path. But what do I mean by that? That there's going to be relative confidence levels that are, or confidence level are going to increase on us making projections on price increases going into the future. I really want to get into the domain of price increases that are benchmarked relative to inflation. I've made the point publicly, I've shared with ESCOM that the era of double-digit price increases is over. So that's the first admission I've made. And of course, I've communicated that to ESCOM and the country. And then the second one is the introduction of new players on the generation side. So we've also been a victim of a monopoly. So when the monopoly is inefficient, the economy pays the price, the household consumers pay the price. With the introduction of private sector players on the generation side, we think over time, theoretically over time, it should help us to bring down the price of electricity, because that's the nature of competition. So you have seen a number of trading licenses have been issued, and you can see some of the traders are getting some of the big consumers to sign with them. There's a transaction that was announced just a week ago of one of the big mines and having contracted with one of the trading license holders. So ESCOM now knows that they must get their game, their house in order. Otherwise, they'll be decimated. So that's the point we're making. But ESCOM is an important player in the South African economy, is a backstop. When everything goes wrong, we're going to rely on the grid. So you need an ESCOM that is competitive, that is agile, that is able to adjust to the new environment. And hopefully over a period of time, you'll see an attenuation of tariff increases. And in relative terms, you should see that the prices are coming down. Of course, with the IRP that was approved yesterday, you'll see we're also adjusting the aggregate mix so that we get significant generation capacity from renewables with all their weaknesses. I think as they're part of the mix, they are going to help us to ensure that we undermine the exponential increases of electricity. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. The next follow-up question is asked by Honorable Machabeni.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair. Greetings to you and the ministers that are in the House and honorable members. With your details, Minister, you've covered me because, as you explained, that there will be a universal access and also a pricing policy and also the balanced sustainability. So I'm covered. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Machabeni. The next follow-up question is asked by Honorable Majola.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. I'm partly covered, Honorable Chair, But with regards to your department's principle, which is to protect the vulnerable customers, I was just looking at the National Treasury regulation in terms of tariffs. It clearly states that municipalities and ESCOM are advised to align their tariff increases in line with the current inflation. Well, the NERSA approved 12%, 12.74% in this current financial year. I want to check with regards to the stakeholders involved with your department in terms of fulfilling your principle of protection the vulnerable. Whether do you have a powerful weight in terms of aligning the tariff increases with what the National Treasury is, and then we're looking at the doubled the percentage that has been increased this financial year. What was your role in terms of safeguarding the consumers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Major. Maybe just to make the point that we are seeing manifestations of energy poverty. So the contemporaneous question on the issues of affordability, it's acutely experienced in the by low-income households. And I must emphasize that the middle class and also the upper classes are affected, but the devastation is on the what I call poor households. And that's why it's important that in the conversation of what should constitute an acceptable price, we need to engage them. I always make the point that we tend to, in the country, to conflate lack of education with absence of advocacy, or agency. So the poor also have agency. They know what they need. They can articulate it in their own indigenous language. And I think the conversation around the pricing policy should be democratized. And that's why we'll reach out to villages, township, peri-urban areas, engaging those who are affected the most. And of course, and all other players. So I'm just trying to answer the issue of stakeholders from the point of view of canvassing what should the new pricing policy looks like. So you are going to find that will be omnipresent in every village, every township, just having these conversations so that they shouldn't be excluded. Of course, by their very nature, they will not refer you to some studies, what the peer-reviewed studies, what other countries are doing because of the lack of access to that kind of information. But they will share with us testimonials of what it means for them not to have electricity. We know now that there's a huge number of less affluent households that can only afford electricity for half a month. And I'm talking about those who are diligent, those who don't resort to illegal connections. So you have that energy poverty, and it undermines, if you like, the socioeconomic development indicators, like the right of kids to have a quality education. They come back from school, they can't do their homework because they must study under candle, or the internet connection is off because they don't have electricity, so on and so forth. So it's got devastating impacts. The study that was done by one of the reputable institutions suggests that there's a correlation between the Human Development Index and per capita electricity consumption. The higher the per capita electricity consumption, the higher the Human Development Indicator. So we want to address that situation. And then the other stakeholders is organized business. You know the devastating impact on exponential increases on the tariff side as it relates to the smelters. A number of smelters have closed, especially in the Northwest, and some of them are planned to be closed somewhere in Limpopo. And those are jobs. So we need to find a solution on how we work with the industry. And I'm sure you have seen our announcements on how we're going to work with industry. And then internally is to engage also with local government, because that's one of their biggest revenue earners. Utilities, water and electricity, and of course the other one one is rates and taxes is the biggest revenue streams of municipalities. So we shouldn't, our intervention should not lead to other unintended consequences. And that's why we must open up this conversation, and we intend to complete this process in the next 6 months. And hopefully the results that we come with will be generally accepted. I don't expect that there will be a unanimous acceptance because of the nature of the conversation, but I'm confident that the critical mass of the people will be with us. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We're now proceeding to question 241, which is asked by Honourable Pina. It's in relation with the plans to deliver the outstanding new transmission lines. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Pinar, for the question. Just to indicate that the department, working in close collaboration with ESCOM and the National Transmission Company of South Africa, is implementing a comprehensive transmission development plan 2025 to 2034. The TDP, in short, which is broadly aligned with the Integrated Resource Plan 2025, which was approved yesterday by Cabinet, provides the framework for the expansion and strengthening of South Africa's transmission grid to support the energy transition and sustain economic growth. On the timelines for delivery, the TDP sets out a 10-year transmission build program that adds approximately 14,000 kilometers of new voltage transmission lines and over 170 substations to the national grid. This build program is being implemented in 3 structured processes. The first phase, which is between the period 2025 to 2027, will see approximately 4,500 kilometers of new transmission lines and substations under construction or at an advanced stage of design. This phase prioritizes strengthening grid connections corridors from the northern, western, and the Eastern Cape provinces to major demand centers in Gauteng and KwaZulu-Natal. These are areas where most of the new renewable generation capacity will connect. Construction of just over 1,000 kilometers is being accelerated through the Independent Transmission Program, which leverages private investment. Phase number 2 will be from 2028 to 2030. We'll see a further 5,000 kilometers of new lines constructed to integrate projects under the ARP 2025 build plan, including the gas-to-power and large-scale renewable project. This phase will also strengthen regional interconnections and improve supply reliability to industrial and mining regions, particularly in Mpumalanga, Limpopo, and the Northern Cape. The last phase, which will stretch the period 2031 to 2034, we'll see 4,000 kilometers of new lines, and this is intended to reinforce the national backbone corridors and supporting cross-border interconnections within the Southern African power pool. This will complete the 14,000 kilometer expansion and secure grid resilience through redundancy and diversified routing. These timelines are consistent with the multinodal grid model development in the IRP 2025, which optimizes generation and transmission infrastructure to ensure least cost system planning. On the question on concrete plans and mechanisms for implementation, I'm happy to indicate that the ITP's initial request for qualification covered just over 1,000 kilometers of new transmission infrastructure as a pilot for private sector participation. The second phase, scheduled for launch in early 2026, will scale up to an additional 4,000 kilometers, focusing on high voltage corridors in the Northern Cape, Eastern Cape, and the Free State. These areas represent the backbone of new renewable energy generation zones in the IRP. I indicate that ESCOM and the NTCSA are jointly responsible for implementing the balance of the grid of the build program. The transmission grid access unit has already issued budget codes and connection approval for more than half of the projects identified in the TDP. On the funding and delivery model, the department and NTCSA are implementing a hybrid funding model that combines ESCOM's capital investment, concessional finance, and private participation through the ITP. This approach allows for diversification of funding sources and faster delivery timelines. And on the regulatory streamlining and land access, the department is working with the Department of Fisheries, Forestry, Fisheries and Environment to introduce a single window approval process for environmental authorizations and way leaves. On monitoring, implementation progress is monitored through the Transmission Infrastructure Oversight Committee, which is chaired by the department. So, honorable members, the transmission grid expansion is the foundation of South Africa's energy transition. The initial 1,000 kilometers delivered under the ITP represent the first step in a broader 14,000 kilometers transmission development program grounded in the TDP 2025 to 2034. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. We'll now take the supplementary question from Honorable Pinar.
Thank you, Chairperson, and good afternoon, Minister. Minister, thank you for your question, for your answer. There are ever some concerns. Minister, given the task that lies ahead to upgrade the country's transmission network and our already struggling firms, economy and employment figures, why have you sidelined South African firms from the tendering process by way of the independent transmission program criteria? And I just want to quote something from the actual criteria, Minister. Clause 2.2.11. The respondent must demonstrate relevant experience by submitting 3 organograms showing the contracting structure for 3 previous transmission lines, independent transmission projects, and 3 organograms showing the contracting for 3 previous substation ITPs undertaken in the last 15 years. Minister, we both know not one South African firm qualifies based on these criteria. Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chairperson.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Pinar. You are absolutely correct. As an engineer myself, I know that there's no single South African company that will meet that criteria because we have not done a build program of this magnitude over the past 15 to 20 years. So that's the admission we make. But then there are the following facts that perhaps are not that obvious. So the first one is that whoever is a successful bidder must have not less than 49% of South African participation. So at an overall group level, that is resolved on South African participation. The second one is that we have been able to study the models in Chile, in Argentina, and also in Brazil. So I'm choosing those because from the level of development, I'm talking using the lens of electricity. I think the degree of maturity is almost the same as ours. What those 2 countries have shared with us was that one of the biggest errors they had committed was when they started was to place an onerous, in inverted commas, requirement on local participation when in fact the skills were not there, were decimated because also they had a similar problem of an economy that's not growing and therefore the build program was not growing at the desired speed. So we know we have the similar situation. When I graduated 1999, we had what we call the top 5 big firms, engineering firms. Only one of them is left because we have not built, the economy has not grown. So that capacity does not exist. And then the advice was that because the program has not matured, they are advised, so they are not imposing on us. Make sure that you invest a lot of energy in ensuring that at least the first phase does not fade, because you are going to give market confidence. And over a period of time, you'll see when we go to phase 2, yes, that once we build, it gets to mature, we have local skills, then we'll be able to reverse engineer that. So you're absolutely correct. I accept the criticism, but this is what we're resolving. Let me tell you what is going to be the biggest risk. It's not a money problem. There's an insatiable appetite. It's a 440 billion rand build program. Yesterday, we announced a 2.2 trillion rands build program. When you put them together, it's 2.6 trillion rands in the next 10 years. That's over 35% of South Africa's GDP. But the point I made earlier on, the industry has been decimated. That's our biggest risk. And the fact that, I mean, you see some of the steel manufacturers are going under. It's a difficult situation that South Africa is facing. The second one is that we don't have sufficient pipelines of engineers to support that build program. I'm meeting with the executive dean deans of engineering and build departments, or if of universities and TVET, so that we share with them and they must produce this pipeline. We are going to rebuild our nuclear program. You will see now that we have approved the ITP. We're talking of 5,000 megawatts of nuclear build. All our nuclear scientists have left. If they are not at Quebec and they are not at NEXA, they've left because they knew looking for new opportunities that excites them. Engineers just like to build and build and build. Where do you find them? They are in the Middle East, they are in Egypt, and now some of them are in the US. They are at the cutting edge of SMR technology that is funded by big tech companies in the US. They are investing in South African-owned companies. These people who have invested in them, PhDs, they worked at NEXA, they worked on the PBMR, they left because we abandoned that program, 2 billion rands into that program. They are in the US and they are the ones who are driving the nuclear agenda. We need to resolve the skills program and rebuild the industry. Otherwise, this will be an opportunity lost, Honorable Pina.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister. The next follow-up question is from Honorable Dlangisa Nodata.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for the response. It is clear from your response that the construction of 14,000 kilometers of the new transmission lines is a project of 10 years that started in 2025. But my question is the department still in line with the targets that have been set to achieve the Transmission Development Plan 2025-2035? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Nodat. So one of the risks I didn't map when I answered the Honorable Pina is that this 14,000 kilometers is going to crisscross both public and private sector owned land. And generally, the big transmission lines is in your far-flung areas. They are going to go through farmland. One of the biggest challenges we're going to have is right of way. We have a situation now. We've been negotiating with Farmer X for the past 3 years. And there's a reluctance by those who are meant to activate the expropriation of land for the benefit of the country. And that's why I'm saying that we will be trapped in this ideological conversation, but expropriation is a very sharp instrument available to the state to allow for the development of the country. And yet we refuse to expropriate. Then the lights will be off. And in many instances, I mean, we do alignment, the engineers, they plan, they don't ask the question who owns this land. So they do a design of the most optimal route. You get to a place, you are building over 400 kilometers, someone is refusing you access that makes just 5 kilometers of that, and just ask ridiculous money. It can't happen that way. So that's one of our biggest risks. So what we have done, we have said to my colleague, the Minister of Public Works, we set up a committee. Myself and him are present. We must sign, we must expropriate. We will show you that we have consulted, we have exhausted that which sits in the law. You must sign. So it can't be a party issue that I'm opposed to this. There's a policy of government that we must expropriate, having satisfied the following, and then we will do it. The biggest risk will sit there. And that's why, of course, we are confident from an engineering point of view, a build point of view. As we build the capacity, like I said to Honorable Pinar, you will see now, I mean, we're very modest on the numbers, but once we get to, I think, the 5th phase of this, we are going to peak at about 2,300 kilometers per annum. Now you must build. You can ill afford to have a situation where you are blocked by a landowner who just asks ridiculous sums of money. And let me explain to you how we do it. We do our evaluation, we offer. If you are objecting to it, do your own evaluation. You bring it, we say, no, we don't agree. We jointly appoint someone to do the evaluation. We have satisfied all of that. And this particular farmer still says no. So the country is held hostage by just one individual who refuses that you must go the route. Then there's an instrument that you must invoke, and that is expropriation. So it's a powerful tool, it's an instrument at the disposal of the state, and the state must exercise it. Otherwise, we'll not be serious about growing this economy, getting the build program. So I'm just saying those are uncomfortable truths. You ask me, we will expropriate. Thanks, Evan.
The next follow-up question is from Honorable Montwedi.
Thank you very much, as Chair. Ngaka, you actually responded to the question that I wanted to pose, but I just want to check with you to say that this 10-year transmission build program is welcomed. And in terms of diversification on the funding, you did speak about the PPP, but I get worried when you say that there's not too many companies in South Africa that will be able to qualify for this particular project that we're speaking about in the electrification, in the transmission line. Now, I want to check because there's a situation in the Eastern Cape around the solar wind farms. I think they're also part of the PPP there, but we see that in the main, they are implemented by foreign-owned companies without any footings of South African companies. Now, how sure are we that when you implement this program that you're talking about, you will ensure that South Africans get to play a meaningful role in that space so that come the next phase of your implementation, they're able to go on their own and be able to build and contribute to the infrastructure that you are building for the country? Thank you very much.
Thanks, Honourable Member. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Montwedi. You're perfectly correct. I think if there's any lessons to derive from the generation side, the IPP program, that is giving us now just close to 7,900 megawatts on the grid. There's another 1,008 that's coming, and we're anticipating that will unlock another 5 gigawatts between now and 2030. The biggest lessons of those rounds of bidding, that is the public procurement of private sector generated electricity, is that despite the fact that there's about 260 billion rands of investment, we have not been able to build an economy on the back of that. And what we're trying to do now, Honorable Montwedi, through you, Chair in the House, is that we are designing with Minister Tau a localization framework. So I think we're going to be deliberate. We're going to, if you like, granularize what the components are, and those where we're competitive, we're going to insist that they must be produced in the country. And of course, we'll have a site, if you like, see-through of what the build program looks like, and therefore the demand, and then we must resolve the supply side. Then we go a level further, Chair, is that a lot of these entities in the country, they are unlikely going to get the kind of financing that is required for them to build, to put up the necessary infrastructure. So coupled with that conversation with Minister Tau, we have Minister Godongwana, because the DBSA must come onto the picture. The IDC is coming on by virtue of Minister Tau, so that we are able to design a fund that can support participation of black industrialists in this program, because we are guaranteeing demand. So we need to resolve the supply side. And then we accept, Honorable Montwedi, that in some instances, there's a premium to be paid. What do I mean by that? We could identify this component, but we find that we can lend it much cheaper from, in many instances, from China. But if we take a deliberate strategy to say that we want to build the industry that's going to help us to produce this, early on we're going to pay a premium, but over time, I think from a scale point of view, reinvestment, improving technology, we're likely going to be price competitive, because we're using this as a catalyst for South African companies to also access the African market, because we are also anchoring as South Africa, the South African power pool, which is about the regional interconnectors. So we want South African companies to play a big part in that. And then your observations are correct as I conclude. If you look at, first is South African financing that is underpinning the generation, the IPP, is the banks really, and I must commend them. The South African banks have come to the party, put their money where their mouth is, so to speak. But the project sponsors are major companies from Europe. So it's the ESCOM equivalent of various parts of Europe. One of the things that we are advocating for is for ESCOM to be more competitive and also participate in this area. ESCOM is a backstop. You know, I always make the point, if everything goes wrong, you have a solar, you have an inverter, you have batteries, and then there's inclement weather, like you have been having here in Cape Town. Ask those rich people who have installed state-of-the-art behind-the-meter solutions. No, when there's inclement weather for a week, they all draw from ESCOM. This ESCOM that is incompetent, useless, and the like is the one that is giving us this electricity. This ESCOM that is giving us profits of 16 billion is the one that is giving us this electricity. I want to emphasize, ESCOM is going nowhere. ESCOM will be stronger and bigger and more profitable for our people going forward.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. The last follow-up question on this question is from Honourable van den Berg.
Thank you, Chairman, Minister. Yes, with Modipi still fresh in our memory, my question was around how will cost overruns be managed in this 13,000 kilometer project. However, I think you did speak a bit on that, and you also spoke to the financing. So I've got one question left for you, and that is, what measures are in place to ensure that the expansion of transmission infrastructure directly supports small and medium enterprises and job creation in rural communities along these new lines? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable van den Berg. Over to you, Minister.
No, Honourable van den Berg, I couldn't have articulated much better than you have. Thank you for the question. As the colleagues from the Northern Cape, I mean, all you see is this investment, but the opportunities are exported somewhere. Premier Sol is very dramatic and colorful in how he paints the picture for obvious reasons, because he feels the pain is much closer to the fire than ourselves. He says, Minister, if I want to meet the CEO of Redstone, which is the biggest investment in the North Cape, the concentrated solar power program, I must go to Sandton. If I want to meet the CEO of some mine that the Minister Mantashe has licensed, I must go to Gauteng. He makes the point that even the technical people who are working on these technologies, I mean, the cleaning and efficiency gains of this, because there's continuous improvement, you can do it remotely. In fact, some of them are not even in the country. They are somewhere in Europe. So the only benefit that they see is during that construction, cleaners just mend the fence there and just build 300 meters of fence, and the benefits end there. So working with Minister Dow, we want to change that. There must be meaningful and legacy benefits for those communities. The least, at least, is the quality skills, and then they can be exportable. They can go to any project anywhere in the country. The rural communities are the most marginalized and excluded from these opportunities. Yes, so we're working on that to ensure that we're able.
Honourable Minister, can you please hold on? Can we request administration to assist us with the back sound?
Okay.
Has it been resolved? No, someone, can you take that phone out, Honourable Boshoff? Please, honourable members, let's observe the decorum of the House at all times. Don't leave behind your gadgets whilst the procession is in session. Sorry for the inconvenience, Minister. You may proceed.
Yes, I was at the tail end to say we'll work out what I call an enduring economic benefit strategy for rural communities. We'll be very specific about those communities. As you can imagine, these transmission lines, the point I made earlier on, traverses rural communities. Their relationship with transmission lines should not be about the workers coming from outside building. They are asked to dig a trench there and it's done, and that's the end. So we'll look at how best we do it. And then we accept that relatively difficult on the transmission line because you just keep on going and going, as opposed to a generation plant where the footprint of the plant is localized, and then you know the immediate parameter, or if you like, radius of people to benefit. But this just keeps on building, and we'll find a way. But I accept your criticism. You are absolutely correct. We're not proud of what we have achieved on the generation side, proud of the fact that private sector participation, the lights are on, so on and so forth. But really, there's no measurable benefits that have been left with those communities. I mean, they can't be reduced to just painting a school there, doing an ECD center there. I'm not trivializing. I'm not saying they are unimportant, but they can do more. And that's why we're creating that fund to help rural communities there. Thanks, Angela.
Thank you very much, Minister. That then brings us to the conclusion of this question. We are now proceeding to question 256, which is asked by Honorable Sithole. The question is about any measures that are in place to increase the electricity generation capacity. Over to you, Minister.
Just to confirm his questions, 256.
56 from Honorable Sithole.
It talks about, the one I have talks about load reduction. And I hear you.
Oh, sorry, my apology. Yes, indeed. Sorry, I just read the following question. Yes, it's about the plans addressing the load reduction and the reduction of unplanned outages since the implementation of the Energy Action Plan.
Thank you very much, Chair. Thank you very much. And also to thank Honorable Stoller for the question. I just want to indicate to the House that the department is working in close partnership with ESCOM and affected municipalities and has implemented a focus and evidence-based program to address load reduction in communities that continue to experience network interruptions due to infrastructure overloading and electricity theft. Whilst the overall generation performance has improved substantially as a result of the Generation Recovery Plan, load reduction remains a necessary, albeit temporary measure to protect network infrastructure from catastrophic transformer failure in high-demand areas. Load reduction typically arises from a combination of overloading, illegal connection, equipment vandalism, and the non-payment of electricity, particularly in low-voltage networks. Between 2022 and 2024, the country experienced 771 transformer failures, affecting approximately 1.69 million customers across 971 feeders. Many of these areas are characterized by rapid household electrification, informal settlement, and inadequate load distribution infrastructure. The department's load reduction elimination strategy, which was publicly presented on the 25th of September 2025, sets a clear goal to end load reduction incrementally by 2027. The strategy is anchored on three interlinked interventions. First, the Free Basic Electricity Expansion Program will improve the registration of indigenous households eligible for support. Currently, members, only 485,000 households benefit from this program out of a potential of 2.1 million. Correct targeting of FBE will alleviate pressure on low-income consumers who are otherwise forced into unsafe or illegal connections that contribute to overloading. Second, ESCOM and municipal distributors will deploy 6.2 million smart meters by 2029, with priority given to 971 feeders affected by load reduction. The first phase, targeting approximately 1.69 million customers in high-risk areas, will be completed by March 2027. Smart meters will enable real-time management of network demand, detection of energy theft, and improved customer load balancing. Third, the department is aligning distributed generation, rooftop, and microgrids projects with the National Distribution Rehabilitation Program. This is aimed at creating a sustainable local energy ecosystem that reduces reliance on overstressed transformers and improves resilience in high-demand communities. Provinces such as Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, Mpumalanga, and Limpopo are among the most affected, with Gauteng alone accounting for more than 600 of the 971 feeders. Through the targeted smart meter and network refurbishment program, the department projects that province currently experiencing 0 to 1% of feeders under load reduction will reach zero by March of next year. Furthermore, the department is collaborating with municipalities to strengthen enforcement against illegal connection, implement community education program on safe electricity use, and introduce rapid response maintenance teams to prevent vandalism and theft. Whilst load reduction has historically been a defensive measure, the interventions under department strategy marks a decisive shift towards sustainable and equitable energy access. The combined effect of smart infrastructure, appropriate subsidies for indigenous households, and the deployment of distributed energy system will ensure that by 2027, no South African household should be subject to load reduction as a result of local network constraints. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. The next supplementary question is from Honorable Sithole.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon to your good self and Honorable Minister Ramokgopa. Honorable Minister, thank you very much for your very informative response, because it was indeed very informative one. Now, Honorable Minister, it is encouraging to hear that the department have plans to eliminate load reduction. Are there any time frames set by the department to end the load reduction? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Sithole. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honorable Stoll. Maybe to make the point is, so we know that 38% of the prevalence of load reduction is in Gauteng, and 21% is in Limpopo, 20% is in Mpumalanga, 18% is in KZN. These four provinces account for over 95% of the total prevalence of load reduction. Like I said, the density is, the overwhelming density is in Gauteng. We have set ourselves a time frame of 2027 early, but I can say that we can do that much earlier. But a few things must be in place. So it's not an issue of our technical preparedness, because when we announced to the country, we were able to map through you, Chair, to Honorable Stoll in the House. So we know where this transformer, the feeder is, the transformer is, the feeder is. I can tell you which ward, and I can tell you which street where that are affected by that. But the biggest, and then we have the necessary equipment, we have galvanized the necessary technical expertise, both within ESCOM and also our contractors. And then we've got sufficient supplies of meters. So we've got the capacity to resolve all of these things in 12 months before the end of next year. But what we've built in 2027, I know this as like many of you community activists, the former mayor and Ward Council. There are areas that are going to resist. And why are they going to resist? It's not your average gogo, the lady who's running a soup kitchen, who's selling sparkle there in Atteridgeville. But it's a network of these delinquent, parasitic, and rent-seeking individuals. Some of them will be found in ESCOM, and some of them will be found in municipalities. These are properly qualified electrical engineers or technicians. They are a mini ESCOM or a mini municipality in that area. And they collect. They are very efficient at collecting. They've got credit control measures. You don't pay, they disconnect you. So those are the ones who will mobilize communities and those network of co-beneficiaries to resist our presence. Of course, we're going to share with communities what this means. Ultimately, it's they who must take the decision. So they resist in this suburb, we go to the next one. And I know where I'm seated, and you'll know much better, colleague. There are areas where we know we're going to find a soft landing. is typically in the rural areas. If you come to my village, Garamokgopa, I know I go to the ward councillor, we go to the royal house, they call in my language, Khota Khote, you've got free access. We will resolve. I'm confident the rural parts of Limpopo we should be relatively fine. The rural parts of Mpumalanga, we should be relatively fine, including KZA. Our problem is going to come when we go to Honorable Mudisa's place. He knows through you, it's going to, in those peri-urban areas, the informal settlement. This is where our problems will be. But we are going to invest in talking to them. And that's why that timeline goes to 2027. But I can tell you, members, standing here, from a technical planning point of view, we can do that too in the next 12 months. We are confident. So we've built into that resistance, and then it's 2027. If I come here in 2027 and we have not done it, I'll be able to explain. In this area, we went on this day. This is the level of resistance. We tried to go back. They didn't want to. But there are people who are profiting from this exercise. We got a qualified audit or ESCOM because of this leakage, the stealing that is happening. Some of it is sponsored from within. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honorable Minister, for the response. I'm now proceeding to Honorable Ryder.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister, for the positive work that's happened already and for those confirmations that you're aiming towards 2027. But that's still a long way off for people that sit every night without electricity through no fault of their own. Load reduction is an arbitrary shutting off of large areas of electricity, often because of small pockets of criminality. The way that the grid is set up, large groups of paying customers get switched off during load reduction because they happen to be in an area where lots of electricity theft happens. Because your department and its agents can't enforce the law, paying customers get cut off. It's a disincentive, but it's also an arbitrary, unjust administrative action, and therefore in contravention of the Bill of Rights, Section 33 of the Constitution. Minister, will it take a constitutional court ruling to force your department to start to comply with the Constitution? Thank you, Chair.
I think it's quite an informative statement. I don't know if you want to respond to the statement that has been tabled. Over to you, Minister.
No, it's fine. I think the criticism is valid. And maybe let me try and dramatize it. Is that you go into an area, so we're connected to this transformer, and it's feeding, let's say, 15 houses. And then there are 5 or 10 of those houses, they are diligent payers. Generally, pensioners, colleagues in the house will tell you, the first thing they pay when they get what we call mudende, this state pension, go and patela rent. So they're very diligent in doing that. And then there's a Sputa Ramokgopa there on the same street. Then I've got backyard tenants. And then I connect them. I collect the money and I don't pay. And then you have, let's say, of those 10 houses, 5 of them doing that. The transformer is designed to supply 10 houses, and then they do a computation given the socio-economic rating of that area. Average consumption per individual is so much, and average size of the household is so much, and then you arrive at the number, and then we install the capacity, the capacity required for that street. When you have this overloading, like I said, we had about 771 transformer explosion. When it explodes, you must go and replace it. That's money that you didn't budget for. So what municipalities and ESCOM do in that specific area that they've sketched to protect first lives, and secondly, to ensure that they doesn't blow up and they have to replace it during the peaks, because that's where in the morning and evening, that's when we have the highest consumption, then they switch them off. But then there are those 5 people who are paying, and they are collateral damage. And that's the point that you are making. So that's why I'm saying you are perfectly correct. So what are we doing with this solution? We're rolling out smart meters. The definition of smart is that we can isolate a house remotely and disconnect you without affecting the others. So that's an incentive for credit control and not ensuring that there's no collateral damage. But then there's an upside. What is the upside? I did say, Honorable, through you, Chair, that there's 2.1 million households that qualify for free basic electricity. Only 480,000 of them are receiving that basic electricity. That's 20%. The 80% is not receiving it. But that money is flowing through to municipalities. And when it gets to municipality X, because they've got other spending pressures, they redirect it and they don't give it to the indigent. So what does smart meters do? Treasury doesn't have to take the money to the municipality. So whoever agreed is 50 kilowatts per hour, smartly every 12 midnight of the last day of last month, we preload you with 50 kilowatt hour. So the indigent, they've got their electricity, they are not a burden to anyone else, and then there is no leakage. And then it also helps us with other, just remote, for one reason or the other, if we're to have challenges with regards to the generation side, we can disconnect all the geysers across the country. And instead of having load shedding, all you don't have is the geysers that are off, but the water is still warm until the system recovers. So it's going to help us to do that, Honorable. And even in instances where you have switched your geyser off, we're over-generating, and the system, the grid is threatened, we can switch you on so that we protect the grid. So it's got multiple uses. But to your question, I agree with you. I make that admission. The solution is meant to do exactly that. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. We are now proceeding to the follow-up that's been asked by Honourable Mundwedi.
Thank you very much again, Modula Stilo. I think the Minister has responded to the question that I wanted to take. But I think, Minister, just out of interest, we welcome that by 2027 you will actually have ended load reduction. But it's quite a concern that it looks like marginalized communities, our rural areas, get to be the victims of load reduction in most instances. And I think it's a serious concern into our communities. But now, for example, we have a township in the Eastern Cape, Gomba Township, in Ward 7 in Buffalo City Metropolitan Municipality, where residents experience a lot of power cuts in most instances. And I think this points to the direction that government is unable to provide consistent electricity supply to our people. But we welcome that by 2027, you would have dealt with load reduction. We hope we'll hold you accountable on that statement that you've made. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mundwedi. Over to you, Minister.
Yes, Honourable Mundwedi, so I've made this admission publicly, is that load reduction has got an appearance of discrimination. That is the low-income areas that are subjected to load reduction. And unfortunately, the facts reveals and confirms what the Honourable Mundwedi is saying. And again, I'm going to be very candid. So you typically find that in the peri-urban areas, this low-income household, adjacent to them is an informal settlement. And because of poor planning from municipalities, they are unable to project for the growth, both in the proliferation of informality and also as a result, the increase in the demand. And like I said, that the distribution infrastructure, the substations and the transformers are designed to accommodate so much consumption. And you find that there's been rapid proliferation of informality. And of course, it places pressure on the distribution infrastructure. And for the reasons I explained earlier on, then you find that they are subjected to load reduction. You will not find it in Clifton. You will not find it in the more affluent, leafy suburbs of Pretoria, Johannesburg, Sandton, Morningside. Unfortunately, that's the nature of the beast that's confronting us. And it's discrediting our message. It's discrediting our message. The system is performing very well on aggregate demand. You can't stand in the podium and make a claim that we have ended the load shedding, because you just need someone in Community X to say that. You say you have ended load shedding, but I'm subjected to load reduction between this period in the morning and that period in the evening. And of course, I mean, it's a technical issue. And I said, let's not enter into the semantics, let's resolve the problem. Just to give you a context, colleagues, The total amount of megawatts that are affected by load reduction is 539 megawatts. At the peak in the evening, what we take out during dispatch during winter is about 35,000. And now in summer, today, I think will be about 26,000. So it's only 500 megawatts that is affected. And on any given day, we're over generating. So the issue is not that we're disguising load shedding and we call it load reduction, but it's merely a technical problem that I just explained. And it's unfortunate that there is a poorer, less affluent areas that are affected. And it's something that will address Honorable Montwedi. I mean, that's a commitment that we have made because really it shows some elements of exclusion, and others can argue that it's penalizing people for being poor, and that's not the intention. And that's why we want to move with speed to resolve this question.
No, thank you very much, Minister. Can I request that administration assist with rebooting the system? We've lost the timer. Whilst they're busy with that, we will move on to the next follow-up question, which is going to be asked by Honorable Farmer.
Thank you, Chairperson. If you will allow me, Chair, let me congratulate the Democratic Alliance on their by-election wins yesterday. Oops, sorry, they didn't win any. My apologies. It wasn't our votes. It's the Patriotic Alliance who won yesterday. Thank you, Chair. My question, Honourable Minister, good day to you too. Will the department consider a relief or compensation mechanism for small enterprises that are suffering financial losses due to this load reduction?
Thank you very much, Honourable Farmer. And over to you, Minister, for your response, please.
No, thank you very much for the question, Honourable Farmer. I think it's a legitimate ask that you are putting through. I must be very honest that it's not something that we have applied our mind to. So I really don't want to rattle an answer that I have not applied my mind to and have not canvassed with the department. I must say that there has been, when we go to communities on other matters, representations of a similar nature to say, but this is costing us a livelihood. So we are out of pocket as business people. And some of them, the peak of their consumption or their business is in the morning and the evening. So we've literally obliterated them out of business and earning an income and feeding their families. So I'm the first one to make the admission on the devastating impact of load reduction on those small businesses, especially those that whose operations coincide with the peaks in the morning and the evening. Please allow me to engage with the team and see what the kind of relief that can be provided. And of course, we'll communicate that. But yes, it's one of those where I really don't have an absolute answer, but we make an admission that they will try and fashion solutions to work with small business people so that they are not pulverized by this load reduction. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Good afternoon, honourable members. Minister, we now move on to the next question, which was posed by the Honourable Kennedy, our member of the EFF from Limpopo. She's not in the House, but she's represented today by Mr. Chirika, who will be sitting in her stead. It's question number 262 and related to electricity generation capacity. If you could reply to the question, please, Minister.
Thank you, Chair, and just to thank Honourable Kennedy in her absentia. Just to indicate to the House that the department is implementing a comprehensive program to increase South Africa's generation capacity, guided by the RP 25. I've indicated it was endorsed by Cabinet yesterday. We'll unveil it to the country on Sunday and share with you comprehensively what are the elements of the RP, and it really represents a decisive and evidence-based pathway to ensure energy security, affordability, and environmental sustainability over the next 3 decades. Chair, I must indicate that the IRP provides a balanced and diversified energy mix that strengthens security of supply whilst maintaining affordability and making South Africa's emission reduction obligations under the Climate Act of 2024. Over the planning horizon, the IRP 2025 project additional new capacity of approximately 29 gigawatts by 2030, drawn from renewable energy, gas to power, nuclear, storage, and flexible generation. This build program will offset the progressive decommissioning of aging coal stations and maintain an adequate reserve margin. I want to indicate that the department, through the IPPO office, is advancing multiple procurement windows to fast-track new generation. Bid window 5-6 projects are in execution, adding another 1,500 megawatts to the grid. The risk mitigation IPP program and gas to power IPP program is expected to contribute approximately 3,000 megawatts of flexible capacity. The energy storage IPP program is underway to strengthen grid stability and enable greater integration of renewable. Together, these programs will deliver a cumulative new capacity of more than 8,000 megawatts by 2027, with a further 10,000 megawatts under design for the subsequent bid rounds. Chair, the reforms under Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act have unlocked significant private investment. As at August 2024, embedded and rooftop photovoltaic capacity totaled 5,962 megawatts, with projected annual additions of approximately 900 megawatts through 2035. Private sector participation now accounts for a growing share of new generation capacity, complementing public procurement efforts. ESCOM is implementing a suite of new capacity, including hybrid wind, solar, and battery energy storage system. Plant performance is also improving, with energy availability factor projected to increase from 61.9% in 2025 to 63% in 2026, supported by targeted maintenance and reliability recovery interventions. Chair, the IRP 2025 identifies gas to power as key enabler to dispatchable capacity to complement variable renewable energy. The IRP 2025 maintains a prudent level of coal capacity through repowering and life extension using cleaner technologies such as circulating fluidized bed combustion and carbon capture pilots in Mpumalanga. Nuclear energy remains a vital component of the baseload mix, with Quebec life extension and the preparatory phase for new nuclear capacity forming part of the department's long-term planning. Chair, I want to indicate that this plan prioritizes new transmission corridors with high potential renewable zones to national demand centers, ensuring that new generation projects can connect to grid timelessly. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honourable Chirika, do you have a follow-up question to pose?
Yes, Chair. Thank you. And Minister, good afternoon. Minister, how will you ensure that the new generation capacity is adequately integrated into the grid, including the required transmission and distribution upgrades? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chirika. And then over to you, Minister, please, for your reply.
Thank you very much, Honourable Kharike. I think it's an important question, because we can build and build, and for as long as we don't bring it into the grid, the communities and the economy will not see the benefit. Just to link it to an earlier answer, and Honourable Kharike, is that we are building that 14,000 kilometers, but we have prioritized the corridors. There's what I call stranded electrons. What do I mean by stranded electrons? These projects have reached financial close. The developers can build tomorrow. They have the money, they've got the technical know-how. What's stopping them from building is because of grid capacity constraint. And already ESCOM had approved those projects. So the first phase is to prioritize that. So that the corridors, it's a Northern Cape going into the Free State and Northwest, and also Gauteng, is meant to unlock about 3,200 megawatts of that stranded generation capacity. The total length of that corridor is about 1,160 kilometers. So that's what we're working on. So it's important, Honorable Gerike, through you, Chair, that there's an alignment between generation opportunities and grid capacity. And you'll see that when we go to the next round, when we open the bid windows, we are going to be location specific. It doesn't help that we issue a bid window tomorrow and someone bids for Eastern Cape, the Cape provinces. We have exhausted the grid. So what we're doing is that, like I said, the TDP prioritizes building the grid there. For as long as we have not built the grid, you can appoint as many, you are not going to connect. But we know there are provinces that they've got even still a good irradiation level. So the Limpopo is an excellent candidate. And then we also have we have great capacity there. So we'll direct the projects. Of course, they are going to come at a cost. There's a premium you must pay because the efficiencies are not the same as in the Northern Cape. So we'll compute what that price point is to ensure that we balance the interest of the investor to get their returns and our objective to ensure that electricity is affordable and we're able to support the South African economy. So in short, the Honorable Gerike, is that there's going to be alignment between the new generation capacity and the TDP so that we're able to get the electrons onto the grid. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. And the next opportunity for a supplementary question falls to the Honourable Mabilo.
Thank you, House Chair. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, on the back of the new demand for electricity supply, what will it play in contributing to 1, economic growth, 2, industrialization, and 3, to job creation? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Mabilo. And your reply, please, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mabilo, for that. So our view is that electricity is a catalyst for development. I mean, if you were to look at the historic evolution of the industrialization complex in the country was built on the back of fossil fuels. And I want to argue that the reindustrialization of the country is on the back of the decarbonization agenda. Honorable Mabilo, as I've stated earlier on, yesterday, Cabinet approved the integrated resource plan. I want to argue that is the most consequential of all programs that the post-apartheid government has approved in the following sense. Is that it represents a 2.2 trillion rands total investment over the life of that, which is principally over 10 years. If you to compute it relative to the GDP, what it means, South Africa's GDP is about 7 trillion, 2.2 trillion. It means that that's 30% of South Africa's GDP. We want to increase gross fixed capital formation, which is a proxy for investment. The NDP says the total investments in the South African economy should be 30% of GDP. A third of that must be public, 2/3 must be private. What this does is to enable us to get to those levels and get the economy going, broaden the flow of industrialization. Honorable Mabilo, you are absolutely correct that there has to be real and material benefits. And the point I made earlier on, we take responsibility for the shortcomings of the bid windows from an employment point of view. So we're going to learn and unlearn from those lessons. The point I made earlier on finalizing with Minister Tau, granularizing what the components to support the IRP will look like and ensure that we are able to localize the manufacturing of those components. If you come to think of it, the more you move down the production value chain at primary sectors of the economy, you really need relatively little skills. The more you go down the value chain, the levels of skills go up, and therefore the incomes are going to improve significantly. And that's why we say that on the back of this, we want to industrialize, and those are the skills we're talking of, and those are the jobs that we are referring to. I think that the demographic profile of our country, for as long as we don't give these young people rather, an opportunity to get into employment, it can be a curse. When you have young people who are not engaged, but can be coordinated through social media. They can mount a resistance against the sitting government. You don't have to look further than what happened in Nepal, what's happened in Madagascar, and all. It's Gen Z that is leading all of that. And really, it's a culmination of a social grievance, a grievance that they are not participating in the economy, and they organize themselves to ensure that their voices are heard. So yes, Honorable Mabilo, industrialization is going to be achieved, skills is going to be achieved, and we are going to contribute to the growth of the South African economy. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable members, the next opportunity for a supplementary falls to the Honourable Pinar.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Minister. And I must say your transparency is very welcomed. Minister, you and industry experts agree that independent power producers are essential if we want stability and consistency in energy supply. Yet, excessive red tape continues to hold them back. Most recently, and you know I've been pushing this issue with you now for a long time, the SANDF's decision to halt all no objection letters for IPP projects. What concrete steps are you taking to remove these bureaucratic barriers and ensure IPPs can operate without unnecessary obstructions? Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Pinar. And back to you then, please, Minister.
Yes, Honorable Pinar, I want to acknowledge publicly that you have raised that matter with me. I've raised it with my counterpart, and in fact, it happens not to only affect that project. It's a number of projects. The reasons that they gave to us, so we've asked for additional engagement, because I think it's going to undermine the project. It will soil the credibility of the project. Investors want to have confidence in this program, and a program might collapse. So it's a valid point that you are raising. So one of the things to remedy the risk to this investment, Chair, is that we're going out on what we call late-stage tender project. What does late-stage tender means? It means that we have resolved as government the EIA, we have resolved the issues of water use license if it's required, we have resolved the issues of right of use. So we don't burden the successful bidder with the responsibility of attaining all this permitting or licensing. So for these projects that we are into, we are doing late-stage tender. So when someone gets to be announced today as a preferred bidder, in theory, can hit the ground running tomorrow. And then as we do that, the team, as I speak to you, we've already identified what is the next phase. So we're resolving all those permitting and licensing. I must say through you, Chair, that there are lessons, great lessons we learned from the generation, the IPP program, was to ensure that we streamline the permitting and licensing. I'm sure you know now that it takes the Department of Environment, I think, about less than 59 days to do this approval. Our colleagues from water, they take almost the same amount of time. Of course, we have made progress, not totally satisfied. We think we can do it quicker, and that's why earlier on I made the point, Chair, that we're going to have a multidisciplinary and interdepartmental team of the relevant department. DFFE is a big part of that. I made the point around public works is a big part of that, and water is a big part of that. Led and championed by senior officials, so bids come through there, and then they get to resolve the issues at one table. So you've got a single window of entry in how you resolve the permitting and licensing, and in that way, Chair, is going to give credibility to the program and address the concerns that Honorable Pinar has raised. Of course, there are others. Defense, I think it's exceptional circumstances. We'll engage with them so that we find each other the middle ground and allow the project to unfold. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honourable van der Berg will have the last supplementary question on this particular one. Honourable van der Berg.
Thank you, Chair. Minister, with the 20-year license extension for Kuiberg Unit 1 granted in July 2024 and the upcoming extension for Unit 2 in 2025, how far are we with a potentially even safer pebble bed modular reactor program? and the possibility of retrofitting these to all power stations? And what will be the impact on solar and wind energy generation due to it? Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable van den Berg. And then you'll reply to that, please, Minister.
Oh, thank you very much, Honourable van den Berg. So you'll see in the modeling of the IRP, so we generate scenario, there's a scenario of extension of life of the coal-fired power station. There's a scenario of a certain quantum of gas to power. There's a scenario on nuclear. There's a scenario on accelerating renewable energy sources, wind and solar. And then we do a matrix of all these options. The most viable option, so when I say viable in this instance, guaranteeing us base load, but the base load that is relatively cleaner is the one that has got the most nuclear in it. So nuclear is part of the future. So the pressurized water technology here in Quebec is gradually being replaced by high temperature reactors, what we call the small modular reactor. And I think your observations are correct. So just for colleagues, a bit of historic context is that we procured the technology on PBMR from the Germans, and then our scientists perfected it. And then we spent over 2 billion rands in perfecting it. And of course, at some point, we made the call that we are not continuing with this. We place it under care and maintenance. All the engineers that worked on that program left the country. Today, when you hear the Americans talking about small modular reactors, the people who are at the forefront of that technology is those engineers that left us, not because they are not patriots, but they were looking for other opportunities. I visited them in Washington. On the day I visited them, the previous day, they had received an injection of $500 million from one of the big tech companies. The biggest investors now in the world on SMRs is tech companies. We went to visit our equivalent, our counterparts in China, had a meeting, posed them, you know, the Chinese very polite, they respect authority. I was called on the site, the equivalent of the regulator, the nuclear regulator. But they've, in some instances, and we had in the meeting the nuclear operator. So the head of the operator, he says, not sarcastically, but he was making a point, says, you know a place called Quebec? Well, I know Quebec. You know, I know Quebec. He says, we visited you in 2001 to learn from you. I don't know what you are doing here. In a very polite fashion. So what's the message? We've invested in this technology. This technology is now taking off. Ask them, the variant, what undergirds the technology of SMR is a South African technology. Minister Mantashe will tell you in more authority because he's been in this space for long. I went to the International Atomic Energy Association annual meetings. I meet the DDG responsible for nuclear from a country I won't mention because that country, they are very direct, unlike the says, but how on earth do you make such a decision? Who does that? Of course, as a politician, I waffled. I knew I was waffling, but the point is I wouldn't admit that we made if you know what I'm saying. So I'm happy to say to the House, we are sponsoring a cabinet decision. We are lifting the care and maintenance on the PBMR. We are restarting that program. The engineers will come, and then we'll partner with the international. We will not be short of suitors, believe you me. We will not be short of suitors to be with NEXA in developing that technology. We are going that route, and that's what we are sponsoring in the IRP. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much for that reply, Minister. Honourable members, we now come to question number 250. It was asked by Honourable Mokoena. This being a hybrid sitting, we have checked. Honourable Mokoena is connected online. The question relates to the Energy Action Plan. And if we can ask you to reply to the question, please, Minister.
No, thank you very much to Honourable Mokoena for the question. Just to indicate that the department welcomes the question as indicated. The EAP represent a whole of government and sector-wide effort to end load shedding, improve the performance of existing generation assets, accelerate the procurement of new capacity, and enable greater private participation in the electricity market. Since its introduction, there has been measurable improvements in ESCOM generation performance and a significant reduction in the frequency and severity of load shedding. Through the ESCOM Generation Operational Recovery Plan, unplanned losses have been markedly reduced through disciplined maintenance, improved management, and the return to service of major units. Consequently, the EAF has improved by more than 10 percentage points over the past 2 years, stabilizing around 70% in recent months. This improvement has been achieved without excessive reliance on open cycle gas turbines, thus lowering diesel consumption and contributing to ESCOM's financial recovery. All the 12 units of Medupi and Kusile stations are now in commercial operation, several of which were returned to service ahead of schedule. These milestones, alongside focused maintenance at Tutuka, Kendal, Duva, have added significant capacity to the grid and strengthened overall system stability. In parallel, the department and ESCOM have continued to implement the generation expansion component of the EAP. Key developments include the standard offer program, the regional power inputs, the battery energy storage system program, and the independent power producer program. The department acknowledges that certain projects under bid window 5 and 6 experienced delays due to global supply disruptions following COVID-19 pandemic, inflationary pressures affecting input costs, and the depreciation of the rand, which impacted project viability. In addition, transmission grid capacity constraints in parts of Northern Cape, Western Cape, and the Eastern Cape have delayed connection timelines for some renewable projects. These factors led to the slower financial closure and construction commencement of the specific IPP. The cumulative effect of this intervention is now evident in improved generation performance, enhanced investor confidence, and greater momentum across the project pipeline. These achievements, coupled with ESCOM's return to profitability by April 2025, demonstrate that the EAP is yielding tangible benefits for both the energy sector and the economy. The financial impact of delays in certain energy action plan commitments has been largely mitigated by the accelerated recovery of ESCOM generation fleet and improvements in reliability of supply. As a result, the broader costs of the state and the economy has been substantially contained compared to previous years. At an economic-wide level, Statistics South Africa data indicates that electricity, gas, and water sector recorded year-on-year growth of 1.4% in the second quarter of 2025, following several consecutive periods of contraction. This recovery has been attributed to fewer power interruptions and higher industrial output. While certain independent power producer projects under bid 5 and 6 experienced delays in achieving financial close due to global cost escalation and grid constraints, these delays did not result in direct fiscal losses to the state. Instead, the projects remained on course to contribute to the generation mix, and the construction is in progress. The department has adjusted procurement frameworks to address these challenges, ensuring that the future bid windows remain bankable and resilient. So, Chair, I want to indicate that we are going to take these lessons when we do the next bid windows to ensure that project gets to financial close quicker. Of course, where they fail to do that, we'll call on the project bonds, ensure that we address the issues of permitting and licensing, so that we don't throttle the speed of expansion and production of a new generation capacity. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Mokoena, do you have a follow-up question to put to the Minister?
Thank you, Chair. I'm adequately covered by the Minister. Thank you. No problem.
Thank you very much, Honourable Mokoena. I thought you might be. Let's go then for another opportunity for supplementary question to Honourable Ndlangisa Nodada.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon again, Honourable Minister. Thank you, Honourable Minister, for the response to the question. Honourable Minister, everyone who has been in South Africa for the last 2 years would agree that Eskom and electricity supply has vastly improved. Just want to check, Honourable Minister, if this improvement that we enjoy is going to be a short-term thing or a long-term thing. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Ndlangisa Nodada. And your reply to that, please, Minister.
Thanks, Honourable Ndlangisa Nodada. It's an opposite question. If you remember that in the lead up to the national and provincial elections, we were called names, essentially being accused of playing the elections, ensuring that we eliminate the load shedding as a factor in the choices of the voter. And we made the point that we've been very consistent out in the public on a weekly basis without any fail. When we hit stage 6, we make sure that we communicate to the public. We shared with the public in the most transparent fashion the challenges that are confronting us. What is it that we are doing to resolve that? And what are the timelines that we are projecting? And of course, all of that culminated in the spectacular results that we were seeing. And of course, it was just a matter of coincidence that they were going into an election, and indeed, load shedding was something that was not a common occurrence. And I want to say the following to the country, that this is not a flash in the pan. It's a result of an orchestrated, deliberate, and intentional intervention by men and women of Eskom, 42,000 plus men and women, engineers, technicians, highly qualified, patriotic, competent, who are at the forefront of the resolution of this question. The board led by Mr. Dr. Ntetonyati, who have been working and collaborating with the ministry and the executive management of Eskom to resolve this question. And I really want to pay tribute to the board. It's coming to an end, the current board, by November of this year. So in the next month, we've just appointed a new board, just to refresh the board, bring new sets of skills that are going to help us to shape the energy of the future. Because I think artificial intelligence is going to be a big part of that. So you need to build that capacity in the board to ensure that we are able to position ourselves. The point I was raising earlier on, small modular reactors, a big part of the future. So it's important that we've got those skills in the board. So the point I'm making is that, no, this solution is enduring. Like I said, the focus now is on the resolution of load reduction. There's additional capacity that is coming. As mentioned earlier on, the 2 reactors at Kubek, the one has got an extension of life by 20 years. We are confident that we'll get the extension of life of 20 years, Kubek unit number 2, without any undue influence on the regulator. The regulator will still make that determination. We are showing that there's new generation capacity that is coming on stream, private sector sponsored. The fact that the energy availability of Eskom now, the past month, performing at an average of 70%. Put that in context, when we had stage 3 load shedding, came to the office, we're at 48%. Now we're consistently above 70%. Is a 22 percentage points increase. That's significant. For us to keep load shedding at bay, we need to be just above 60%, and we're more than that. And that's why the South African economy now is going to be catalyzed by this renewed effort by Eskom. So Eskom, it moved from a crisis to a catalyst, is the one that is going to enable the growth of the South African economy. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honourable Boshoff, it's your turn for a supplementary.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, Minister, and thank you for your responses on that. But however, noting Eskom's improving maintenance, it still, however, spends 11 billion every year on subcontracted maintenance. And as you rightly said, now you employ more than 42,000 people. The question then that I would like to ask from you is, why does your department still lack the internal capacity then to perform its own maintenance? And when will Eskom then do its own maintenance with the more than 42,000 employees that you spoke of? Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Honourable Boshoff. And back to you, please, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Boshoff. So the department's mandate will never be about doing the actual engineering work. So we will not be enter that space of doing maintenance is what is left to Eskom. I think what we do through a shareholder compact, we stipulate what our expectations are. Of course, we hold a mandate of policy, and then Eskom will execute, and then they'll perform against that a mandate as codified in the shareholder compact, and then we do oversight on that, Honourable Boshoff. And then the second point, it's a valid point. I mean, if you had to do a comparable study, the size of Eskom. Let me just explain to members what Eskom is. So if Eskom were a country, and you measure the matrix of its revenue, the size of its balance sheet, Eskom will be the 5th largest country on the continent. That's what Eskom is. If Eskom were to be listed tomorrow on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Eskom will be the biggest company on the Johannesburg Stock Exchange. So if you had to do a comparable study on the size of the employees vis-a-vis an equivalent SOE in some parts of the world, you are going to find that it is comparable. Of course, a large part of the 42,000 that I referred to, Honourable Boshoff, is really technical people who are working, who are at the coalface of making sure that we service the machines. You are absolutely right. We need to spend money to have the lights on. And that's why we directed the money to ensure that we lift the energy availability factor from 48% to now consistently perform at 70%. It takes money for that to happen. And that is as a result of historic reasons. There have been significant neglect that plunged us into darkness. So we needed to spend money. When you don't do maintenance, you are going to pay the cost much later because the machine will require a significantly higher amount of work than if you kept maintaining the machine. It's like your car, you don't take it for service. It's like you're going to break, and when you get a breakdown, then you must get a towing company to take you to the nearest workshop, and of course the costs will be higher. And in fact, you might be hit with a bill that you never expected. But when you do proper scheduled maintenance, you are able to anticipate the period at which you take these units for maintenance. The resources will be galvanized, and you'll also have a fair sense of what the size of the ticket is for you to do that maintenance. And the last part, Ms. Boshoff, Honourable Boshoff, you are absolutely correct. We'll keep an eye on the cost of production. So Eskom has to be an efficient producer. Otherwise, if it's not an efficient producer, it's the customer that pays the price. But now with NERSA has always been alert. Well, there are no freebies. I've made the point. The era of double-digit tariff increases is behind us. Private sector is here. Competition is there. If they don't up their game, they'll be decimated by private sector. So they need to compete in this environment. A dispensation of reforms has brought the much-needed competition, and hopefully over time, the consumer will see the benefits of this intervention. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. Let's go now to the Honourable Machobeni.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, you've covered me, but I'm so worried about the delays you've mentioned. My question, how will the delays affect the project originally contribution to the grid's capacity? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Machobeni. Minister, your reply, please.
No, you're absolutely right, Honourable Machobeni. It will have devastating impacts because remember that when we model, we are assuming that this capacity will come on stream by this time. And for reasons that I've mentioned, the issues of COVID-19, the issues around the global politics, and some of them the developers, they invoke force majeure. So essentially saying we could not meet our obligation because of these subjective conditions that are happening all over the globe, that are undermining the supply chain, and therefore they can't get the equipment here, lend them on time. So that's the problem that we have. And like I said, that's why it is important, through you, Chair, Honorable Machoveni, that we continue to invest in an ESCOM that is stable, because that's the backstop. So we expected this capacity to come in. That capacity has not come in. Imagine if we had neglected ESCOM, then it means that the lights will be off. That capacity has not come in. We go to our insurance. Who's our insurance is ESCOM. And that's why ESCOM is an important part of this. And of course, there are lessons here, Chair, to Honorable Machoveni, is to make the point that of course, after doing an objective and fair assessment of the claims that the private sector are making, where we don't agree with them, we invoke the guarantees because they place guarantees. If you don't meet the expectation, we can call on those guarantees. We are calling on them. They have taken us to court. We'll fight it in court. When we don't do our bit, they call on the guarantee. So if we fail, the ESCOM fails to pay the PPAs, the National Transmission Company, they'll run to Minister Godongwa because there's a sovereign guarantee. He must pay. By extension, you and I are paying. So one of the things that we want to eliminate is to privatize the benefits. What do I mean by that? Where there are returns, private sector then is happy. But where there are risks, we socialize them. So anything that goes wrong, no, Treasury must pay. So it means it's you and I. It must be a balanced thing. That's how we're going to design these contracts. They've got obligations they must deliver. There are penalties for not delivery. We've got obligations we must deliver. If we don't deliver, there are penalties that we must pay. So yes, you are absolutely right. It's got those impacts. But we are shielded by the fact that ESCOM is performing. It's no more at 48% EAF. It's at 70%. Then they can shoulder the demand, and that's why we still have the lights on and the economy is going. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you very much, Minister. We have come now to question number 257. It was asked by the Honourable Dlamini, and it relates to, beg your pardon, it relates to the Renewable Energy Master Plan. Please, Minister.
Thank you very much, and thanks to Honorable Dlamini, just to make the point that the South African Renewable Energy Master Plan, in short SAREM, is a national industrialization strategy that supports the country's transition towards a secure, sustainable, and inclusive energy future. Developed collaboratively by government, industry, organized labor, academia, and social and civil society, SAREM sets out a coordinated roadmap to expand South Africa's renewable energy and battery storage value chains up to 2030. SAREM is anchored in DEE's, the department's strategic priorities to advance localization, drive industrial development, and enable broad-based participation in the energy economy. It seeks to align renewable energy procurement with the country's industrial policy to unlock manufacturing opportunities across the solar PV, wind, and battery storage value chain. Through targeted interventions, SAREM will support the establishment of local manufacturing capacity, the creation of decent and sustainable jobs, and inclusive participation with specific emphasis on empowering women, youth, persons with disabilities, and new entrants. 49 interventions have been identified under 4 strategic pillars. Pillar number 1 is supporting demand by ensuring that a consistent annual rollout of at least 3 gigawatts of renewable energy to stimulate investor confidence and manufacturing scale. Number 2 pillar is driving industrial development through the enabling policy environment and targeted incentives. Pillar number 3 is about fostering inclusive development by integrating SMMEs and emerging enterprises into the renewable energy value chain. And the last pillar is about building capacity through skills development, technology transfer, and investment in innovation. In addition, Chair, SAREM leverages South Africa's existing industrial capabilities and mineral endowments, particularly in vanadium, to position the country as a competitive player in energy storage manufacturing, including vanadium redox flow batteries, This approach supports the department's commitment to industrialization, beneficiation, and economic diversification under the Just Energy Transition Framework. Chair, the implementation program of SALREM is already in place. The department has prioritized stakeholder alignment and coordination to ensure effective execution. A dedicated project management office is being established with the Independent Power Producer Office to drive and monitor implementation. Parallel to this, several social partners have initiated supporting programs aligned with SAREM's objective. For example, the Energy and Water Sector Education and Training Authority has launched the Power Up Digital Skills and Employment Matchmaking Platform to link young South Africans with training and employment opportunities across the renewable energy and battery storage value chain. Chair, work is underway to map local manufacturing across solar, wind, and battery value chains, with 70 identified so far across 46 sub-components. This data will inform local content targets and guide investments. In addition, SAREM is developing a value proposition to attract investment into SEZs, IDZs, and industrial parks, reinforcing government's commitment to turning the energy transition into real industrial and employment opportunities for South Africans. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Minister, Honourable Dlamini, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Honourable House Chair. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Indeed, it pays off to deploy an engineer in this field. Today, we are highly educated, and we hopefully to be educated as and when we move forward, Chair. Chair, and thank you, Honourable Minister, again to emphasize and reaffirm to South Africans the intention of government, especially under your department, that ESCOM is going nowhere. Because there is a concern amongst South Africans that with this new renewable energy master plan, ESCOM will be unbundled and privatized. So continue with those initiatives that are really educating our people to understand the intention of the master plan so that they don't fear the privatization of the state-owned entity, which is ESCOM, that is so important to South Africans. You have responded to my second question as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honourable Dlamini. I'm not sure if you want to respond to anything there, Minister. We can go to the next one. Thank you very much. Honourable Pienaar, do you have a supplementary question to put to the Minister?
I do, Chairperson. Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, South Africa's Energy Master Plan is a step in the right direction, and we commend the Deputy Minister for it. However, there are critical risks that could render the entire plan meaningless, such as the shortfall of local skills and the lack of investment in local manufacturing caused by energy uncertainty, hostile union environments, and rigid BBBE requirements. How does your department intend to resolve these fundamental barriers to ensure the master plan actually succeeds? Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Pienaar. And your reply to that, please, Minister.
Oh, SAREM is a policy of government. So we have government to thank for SAREM. We have an excellent relationship with the DM. I really do want to encourage that you must not try to be a wedge driver. It don't help us. We're resolving a crisis here, and I'm pulling with the DM. We assign her the responsibility to lead SAREM, but that's a policy of government. And then there are fundamental questions that are non-negotiable. Broad-based Black economic empowerment is a policy of government. It's still a policy of the 7th administration, and we are unwavering on that. So you can't resolve an economic question without resolving the participation of those who were historically marginalized and excluded. So for this to have a credibility, you are going to find that there's going to be very, very strong Black participation in the SAREM and the industrial aspects of it. So there will not just be fellow travelers who gets to have these opportunities because of networks, but they are going to be participants, meaningful participants in SAREM. We're going to ensure that the industrialization take place. The points I raised earlier on at one of the questions, working with the IDC, DBSA, they'll be targeted. That transformation fund that Minister Tau has articulated in public, we're going to use it to support and underpin SAREM. And the overwhelming beneficiaries of this intervention will be those who have been excluded. So blacks in general, Africans in particular. So that's a non-negotiable. We are not about to relent on that. And then we must illustrate that the benefits are equitably shared. So I think we must undermine where there's a huge concentration on major economic centers. So it can be the case that if you want to benefit, you must be in the metropole province of Gauteng, or you must be in eThekwini or Cape Town. We'll target all provinces. And in fact, you are going to find that there's going to be a great bias to what we refer as a majority, overwhelmingly rural provinces. So Limpopo, Eastern Cape, Free State, and Mpumalanga, Northern Cape are going to benefit immensely, so that there's an equitable spatial allocation of these benefits. So it doesn't. It's a great indictment for a young person in a remote part of the Northern Cape. We went to a place, I think it's called Rooigrond or something of that nature, and they were telling me that the area is depopulating. For youngsters in that area, for them to, it's close to Springbok, for them to get opportunities, they must go to major economic centers. It can be. So youngsters don't have a relationship with their roots because the opportunities are concentrated in one area. I am not suggesting that the opportunities will be equally distributed. I'm saying it must be equitably distributed. You are not going to undermine the fact that the concentration and density is a function of development. You are not going to displace Gauteng, you will not displace Cape Town, you will not displace Durban or eThekwini, but at least others must also benefit. They can't be watching when there's a feeding frenzy at the table. If you are not at the table, you are on the menu. So we want to make sure that you don't have to come to Gauteng to have the benefits. You can be in a remote rural part of the country and still get the benefits. Thanks, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The next turn falls to the Honourable Machobeni.
Thank you very much, Honourable Chair. Honourable Speaker, Honourable Minister, what mechanisms are in place to ensure local businesses, including women-owned businesses, benefit from the growth of the renewable energy sector? For example, through preferential procurement and financial inclusion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honourable Machobeni. Your reply to that, please, Minister.
Yes, Honourable Machobeni, thanks for that. Just reinforcing the message. Financial inclusion, a big part of the conversation, and that's why I spoke about the role of the GFIs in supporting the rural communities, in supporting rural women to participate. So it's going to be deliberately designed. Like I said, what we're working on, Chair, through you, is just to see where these opportunities are, and we're able to map them as a function of time. So at which point are we expecting which component, which geographic area is best placed to manufacture that? What are the kinds of skills that are required upfront for those women and young people living with disabilities to participate? You'll see in the answering to the main question, we made the point, we're working with the energy and water SETA. So they're the ones who are doing the skills development part of it. You can't have a program of this magnitude and people don't see a difference. I mean, really, it will be an indictment on the collective here. So there must be a fundamental alteration of the economic relations of society. So it starts somewhere. And this is a real opportunity. I've shown what it means to the South African economy, the GDP. I think this is a real catalyst. We can't miss this opportunity. And yes, we are going to make mistakes, Chair. We are going to make mistakes. I always make the point that those who do are the ones who make mistakes. If you fold your arms, you'll never make mistakes. But we don't set out to make mistakes. We'll do everything to address this. The other point to raise to Honourable Machobeni, one of our biggest weaknesses in the country is that we are consistently searching for a perfect solution. And I make the point that solution doesn't exist. Just start. We are going to start and we'll change the lives of our people. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Minister. The last supplementary that will be posed to you will come from the Honourable Peter.
Thank you, Honourable Chair. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. Minister, let me applaud you for the manner in which you are lecturing this House through the way of accepting a criticism. And you brought stability in ESCOM. I therefore thank you, Minister. My questions are covered. I therefore thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Peter. And Minister, if we can invite you to resume your seat, and thank you very much for the Minister, I also want to join the chorus and thank you for your respect you've shown the House with your forthright answers today. We've come to the end of the questions to the Minister of Electricity and Energy, and I'd like to thank the Minister for availing himself to answer questions today and commend him for the excellent progress that he's made under his leadership in his department. Honourable members, I now call on the Honourable Minister of Mineral and Petroleum Resources to respond to question number 253. Minister, question 253 was put by the Honourable Mabilo, and it relates to the impact of US trade tariffs. Thank you, Minister.
No, thank you very much, Honorable Chairman. I'm sorry. Honorable members, the trade tariffs imposed by the United States mainly affect trade flows between USA and trading partners. However, South Africa fuel supply and pricing are largely insulated from such. The reason for that is that South Africa does not export any fuel to the US. Number two, liquefied petroleum gas imported from the US will not attract any tariffs. And then South Africa imports its fuel imports mainly from countries like India, Italy, Oman, Qatar, and Bahrain. Therefore, the security of fuel supply remains unaffected. Domestic fuel prices are influenced by few factors. The first one is the price of crude oil. It is advertised on TV every day. Petrol, refined product prices, and the rand US dollar exchange. Those are the factors that are taken into account in counting the fuel price. While fluctuation in global markets and currency movements can impact on fuel prices, US tariffs have not had a direct effect on South African fuel pricing to date. I'm putting the qualifier to date because what will happen in the future, I don't know. No, currently the department does not have specific strategies and plans to place to mitigate the impact of US tariffs, as these measures have not directly influenced fuel supply and pricing in South Africa. The country's diversified sourcing of fuel from various international suppliers provides sufficient resilience against potential disruption linked to tariffs. That is my considered response to the question of the coast itself.
Thank you very much, Minister. The first supplementary question will be asked by Honourable Mabilo. Over to you, Member.
No, thanks, Acting Chair. Good afternoon, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, I'm very much happy in the manner in which you have responded in a comprehensive, detailed and coherent manner. You have covered every other aspect that I wanted to raise. Therefore, there will be no follow-up question. Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you very much for that, Honourable Mabilu. The second follow-up will go to Honourable Swart. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Acting Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. I've heard what you said, Minister. Ongoing US tariffs remain a serious concern for all major South African industries. The question is, what is your department doing to support South African fuel-producing entities, such as Sasol, from these external risks and ensure their long-term viability? Thank you, Honourable Chair.
Thank you very much, Honourable Swart. Over to you, Minister.
There is a body called FIASA. That body is an association of all fuel-producing majors in the main. And we interact with them regularly to ensure that what they do as a sector does contribute to the economy of the country. So we don't have plans to support particular producers. Sasol is but one of them. They're sitting in the same structure with BP, with Shell, with Energy, Total Energy, and everybody. They sit in one structure. We interact with them, and we regulate prices for everybody else. We don't protect specific producers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. The following follow-up will be from Honourable Gericke from the EFF. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair, and good afternoon, Minister. Minister, given that South Africa is a mineral and oil-rich country, and we have developed PetroSA and Sasol, for instance, to supply locals with cheaper and affordable fuel, yet your department opts to export our products in order to earn foreign currency. Local production will give access to millions of consumers at cheaper prices. This will also exempt us from paying huge tariffs and levies. Please inform us how your department will approach this situation and change policies in order to realize the objective of local manufacturing access to South Africans to more affordable gas and fuel. Thank you very much.
The solution is not on what Sasol does now and what PetroSA does now. The solution for affordable petrol prices is protection of the gas and petroleum sector. At this point in time, every time we touch a petroleum exploration, as we do in the Orange Basin, we end up in court. If we can resolve that, we have a more secure future for fuel prices, guarantee of fuel supply that is dependable on our own deposits. At this point in time, we can try to protect us, or we can produce PetroSA, protect PetroSA, but we import bulk majority of our petroleum products. This solution is in the discovery and exploitation of our own petroleum products. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. We now move to the last follow-up question, and that's from Honourable Farmer from the PA.
Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, what is the current status of the South Africa's strategic fuel reserves? What is the current status of South Africa's strategic fuel reserves, and will the department replenish or expand these reserves as a price stabilizing buffer? Thank you.
You will recall that during the COVID-19, we sold a big bulk of strategic fuel to subsidize consumers in the prices that rocketed up. We have not replaced that portion of the strategic fuel. Our intention is to replenish the strategic fuel. But at this point in time, the situation requires us to move faster. The inhibiting factor, though, is the slow refining capacity in South Africa. Because as a fuel stock is raw petroleum, it's not a final product of petroleum. So the sooner we get a solution to a number of refineries, the better our situation is. We always emphasize that the decline of the refining capacity in the sector is a risk to the economy. And that's why we're investing in SAPREF, we're investing in PetroSA to revive the two refineries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now move to question 239 on the draft Mineral Resources Development Bill, and the question has been posed to you by Honourable Pienaar from the DA. Thank you.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. The bill is in support of the creation of jobs, in the sense that it has introduced a new form of permits in terms of South African small-scale mining permits and artisanal mining permits. That creates an additional employment creation section of mining. And the invitation of application for abandoned and relinquished and cancelled rights is also part of the law, so that those rights must not be killed and be suffocated. People can apply for them so that we reignite them, so that employment can be created. And the bill provides for certainty on mining security of tenure. The BE requirement, for example, has been removed from exploration. And the reason we removed that part from the exploration is because exploration creates no value. You are still looking for a mineral, quantity and quality of mineral, and only when you discover the quantity and quality of mineral do you get into mining, then the BE provision of law kicks in. And our view is that we're encouraging exploration because mining starts with exploration, every mine. It is a finite life, but it starts with exploration, then it goes to mining engineering, then goes to metallurgical processing. So all that, we're removing the first part because that is not value creation, and therefore there's no BE requirement for exploration. The petroleum provisions have been removed from the current bill. The reason for that is we have actually published and passed Upstream Petroleum Resource Development Act, which establishes a petroleum sector as a sector, remove it from being an appendage of mining. So it has been removed from this bill, and the reason for that is that so that sector is a standalone sector now, and the bill is focusing on mining. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Pienaar, any follow-up question from you?
Thank you, Chair. Yes, I do. Minister, good afternoon. Minister, under your proposed bill that will kill investment in the mining sector, can we expect that when your department has gone through the public comment submissions that overwhelmingly objects to the bill, will you ensure that the bill is scrapped in its entirety? Thank you, Minister. Chair.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Minister.
It's a debate I engage every day with my sister party in the GNU, which believes that the regulation as it stands today repels investors, and there's no evidence of that. The only difference is that there is a great improvement of black investment in mining. That's why if you look into mining, into coal mining, you will discover that it is wholly owned and managed by black South Africans, a major development following the legacy of apartheid. That is what is happening in coal. There's only one company that can be classified as white in coal is Glencore. It's not the biggest producer. And you can go to manganese, you'll find a similar development, almost post 50% is actually black investment. The consolidation of Exxaro and NCOP, many said it's an acquisition. I said it's not an acquisition. It's a conglomerate. It's formation of a conglomerate, a new conglomerate called Exxaro. So the evidence of investment having been repelled is not factual. It is imagined in the majority of cases.
Thank you, Minister. The next follow-up question is from Honourable Sithole from the ANC.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, and good afternoon to the Honourable Minister. Honourable Minister, thank you for your response. My follow-up question is that the bill is clearly aimed at a job creation and the introduction of a small-scale mining and artisanal mining. It is correct to equate the objective of the bill with the lowering of standard in the mining sector. That is my question.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much for the question. Mining is the fastest transforming sector of the economy today. I'm stating that publicly. I still want somebody to come and challenge it because it is factual. Unfortunately, it must work with the banking sector, which is the most untransformed sector of the economy. Banking is still having the old structure, old policies, old traditions, old cultures. And mining, as it transforms at a fast pace, will have to engage all the time with the banking sector to facilitate funding of that transformation. And we're hoping that even with this bill, banks will not be an obstacle to the fast progress in transforming that economic sector called mining. It is the fastest transforming sector today. I can give you statistics if you want them. I can tell you that today, if you remember, there was a stage under apartheid where women were not employed in mining. Today, with the new legislation, more than 78,000 miners are female. Actually, in the executive, it's black, female, and everybody. And I always remind Afrikaners that before 1994, there was not a single Afrikaner who was a CEO of a mining company. All of them are beneficiaries of change. They don't want that said. I say so. I gave them the list. All of them, they ended up in general manager position. They were never CEOs. They were suppressed as well. So 1994 liberated them and therefore will engage banking not to be an obstacle to the transformation of the mining sector.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now move to Honourable Motweni from the EFF.
Thank you very much, Chair. Minister, I come from a party that believes that land ownership pattern must reflect the demographics of the Republic of South Africa. And any intervention from government that seeks to transform the economy will definitely welcome it. It's unfortunate that you sit in the GNU with parties that want to oppose your BBEE, that wants to oppose their very same mineral resource development bill that you are bringing. You want to welcome that as an organization. But I want to check with you, Minister, to say, what impact does the rejection of the Mineral Resources Council on the bill have on the actual implementation of the bill when it becomes an act of parliament? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. Over to you, Minister.
One of the things I've learned in growing up, Honourable Chair, is that I always avoid putting the cart before the horse. Because when you do that, you are anticipating outcomes. When the bill is before Parliament, that bill must go through a process of Parliament, and I don't think there's any section of the bill that is rejected at this point in time. The bill in its entirety is before Parliament. The Parliament must process it. And I cannot stand up here and anticipate rejection of a section of a bill that is before Parliament. That is part of being loyal to Parliament and trust that Parliament follow through processes and those processes are tried and tested. That is the issue.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now come to the last follow-up, and that's from Honourable Mokoena on the virtual platform. Over to you, Honourable Mokoena.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon, Minister. Given that South Africa's sedimentary basins differ significantly in age, depth, and hydrocarbon potential, what measures are in place to ensure that the prioritization of onshore and offshore gas exploration areas, such as Karoo and Juanita basins, is guided by independent geological assessments rather than commercial lobbying, and that the results, seismic and core sampling data are shared with South African institutions like MINTEC, the Council for Geosciences, and other universities to build national expertise and to reduce reliance on foreign consultants? Thank you.
Minister, it's up to you whether you want to answer that or not, because it doesn't follow the original question. Thank you.
No, I think the honourable member took a wrong question, which is not in this section of the question. I will deal with it when it comes to the correct section. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister. In light of that, we now move to question 252, which will be asked by Honourable Dlamini, and it's about the diamond industry collaborations. Thank you. Over to you.
The diamond sector is in trouble. We are alive to that. The minister has recently endorsed the Luanda Accord. The Luanda Accord is a strategic commitment to promote and safeguard the market of natural diamonds. Emphasize natural diamonds. And growing competition from lab-grown diamonds, which are not natural, but are very popular with the younger generation. So we're supporting that because that is putting an additional amount of 1% of revenue to the marketing of natural diamonds. We support that. In doing so, what we have done, we've taken that Luanda Accord to the cabinet. It has been accepted. We've been allowed to participate in it. Number two, we have met the diamond sector. The producers had a meeting under one roof, discussed this and accepted by both. So we are working with the diamond sector to improve the standing of natural diamonds. So it's not a question of the state doing what it wishes to do. The producers have agreed to be part of improving the demand for natural diamonds. At this point in time, it's a sector that is going through. It is reflected in some economies where, for example, an economy like Botswana, which is a one-commodity economy in the main, once diamond is in trouble, the whole economy gets into trouble. So here, we're working with diamond. We are delaying the decline by working together and marketing natural diamonds. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Honourable Dlamini, any follow-up?
Thanks, Honourable Chair. Thank you, Honourable Minister Babu Mkwati. With your response to my initial question, it is clear in your response that the government or the department, your department, is in engagement or discussion with role players in the diamond industry to find solutions to challenges. How was the call to the diamond producers to contribute 1% of their diamond revenue sales to a fund received by the diamond producers? Thanks.
Thank you very much, Honourable Dlamini. Over to you, Honourable Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Dlamini. The reason that we refused to sign the Luanda Accord in Luanda was because, in terms of our culture as South Africans, you take no decision about anybody without that person being involved. We had to come back and sit with the diamond sector under one roof, discuss the proposition. It was accepted by diamond producers. Though there was a little bit of the smaller producers feeling that 1% of revenue is too much, but the need to market natural diamonds to regain the lost market share is quite acceptable to everybody in the sector. Actually, a diamond producer like De Beers is leading the acceptance of that 1%. The other smaller producers are joining in. They have agreed, not in response to a letter, but in a meeting under one roof, we engage with them. So it's their decision.
Thank you very much. We now go to Honourable Gotzel from the DA.
Thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, you speak of collaboration with the diamond industry, yet Alex Core, our state-owned mining company and a once world leader in diamond production, no longer mines a single diamond itself. If government cannot successfully run its own mining entity, why should key players in the diamond sector trust the state as a partner or a collaborator?
Thank you, Honourable Gotzel. Over to you, Minister.
No, thank you very much. Alexco was run by a department called Public Enterprises for the longest of time. We've taken it over now. We have been to Alexco physically. When we suggest solution to Alexco, we suggest them on the basis of practical experiences on visiting it. Let me give you a few examples. What is called Alexco is a joint venture. The Alexco side, which is doing alluvial diamond mining, is a state-owned company. It has a management structure, and the Rechterveld Mining Forum, which mines the land deposits, is owned by the community. It is not having any management structure. What we are talking to the board about is that please set up a very lean and mean structure on the diamond, on the Rechterveld Diamond Mining Forum, so that when there is a meeting of that forum, there must be ideas that are scientific and driven by scientific management capacity on both sides. If we can do that, we hope that it will improve. The second thing that we think should happen is to actually introduce screening. You can't run a diamond mine in Kamban without screening, because that means it's not a leakage, diamonds walk out of the pit. So we're looking into all those issues as an intervention at this point in time for an entity that we've just acquired. And the most encouraging part of it is that, unlike in the previous years where Alexco couldn't submit financial statement, it has submitted financial statements this time. So management of Alexco is being attended to, and therefore the diamond sector must trust the state to work with them. We are not nationalizing their own diamond mining. We're working with them to improve the state of natural diamonds in the market. And they are the owners. They mine and they benefit. We'll work on Alexco to get our side right so that we can also benefit. And ultimately, the diamond sector is a mining sector. It is regulated like everybody else in the sector.
Thank you very much, Honourable Minister. Over to you, Honourable Gericke, for the next follow-up.
Thank you, Chairperson. Minister, when we were youngsters, the Freedom Charter was our Bible, and we believed every word in the Freedom Charter. The Freedom Charter says, the mineral wealth beneath the soil
the banks and the monopoly industry shall be transferred to the people as a whole. The ANC is now governing for 30 years, and the mining sector is still predominantly in the hands of white ownership, including foreign owners. What measures have you put in place to give Black South Africans access to that sector so as to empower them and transform the mining sector? And here we are not asking about a handful of privileged tokenism, black people, but empowerment and transformation to the masses of South Africans. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you. Honourable Gericke, over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Chairperson. Look at the law first. In terms of the MPRDA, all minerals below the surface of the soil belong to the state on behalf of the people as a whole. So that means ownership of minerals below the surface of the soil belong to the state. That is a step to the right direction to meet what you are reading from the Freedom Charter. That's why if a private entity want to mine, they apply for a permit and a mining license from the owner, the state. And the state gives them the license and actually make that private owner to pay royalties to the owner, the state. That's why, for example, it was easy for us when there was a talk of a sovereign wealth fund. We said, if you want to start a sovereign wealth fund, the right place to start is to take your royalties, make them the basis of a sovereign wealth fund. Somebody must take that decision, but that is our suggestion. So the issue is, the debate that we are having is whether mining should belong to the state in terms of operations, or should we allow South Africans to get ownership of mining? You call black owners tokens. I'm sure what they are, they will be very surprised and be very angered by that. No, wait, don't shout. There goes another dome. Listen. That's why if you go to a company like Seriti, for example, it's 100% black owned, it's bigger than Pick and Pay in terms of capitalization. That is not a token. Exaro is a big conglomerate owned by majority of blacks, who started by owning 30%, increased it to 51. At a point, sold a portion of that 51 to settle the debt and owned what they own genuinely. And that is not token. If you go to Tungela is a black mining company, it's not token. So if you call those tokens, then you will never appreciate the value of individuals. You want the state to own everything. And we have no problem with the state owning. We are owning African exploration. It's making snail's pace progress in terms of developing. It's owned by the state. We govern it. It is not making progress as we expect it to do. What we cannot do, unless we're reckless, we cannot just take a sector, throw it to the state without checking the capacity and ensure that there is resilience and reliability of running the mining sector. We will not do that. Though ownership of minerals below the surface of the soil belong to the state on behalf of the people as a whole. That's why every time people talk about localization and talk about area around the mine, it's a mistake because it doesn't belong to that area. It's a mineral that belongs to the state on behalf of the people as a whole.
Thank you very much, Minister. The last follow-up will be from Honourable Peters from the UDM.
Good afternoon, Honourable Chair. While the department continues its efforts to strengthen collaboration between government and the key players in the diamond industry to advance growth and transformation, a new challenge has emerged in the form of lab-grown diamonds, which are rapidly disrupting the global market. This development has already had notable economic repercussions in neighboring countries such as Botswana, where natural diamond venues have declined sharply. My question is, Honourable Minister, has the department begun exploring ways in which South Africa itself can enter and benefit from the growing lab-grown diamond market in a manner that complements rather than undermines our natural diamond sector and its contribution to the economic growth and employment? If so, what plans does your department have to support skills development, research and innovation in the lab-grown diamond sector? I thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much, Honourable Peter. Over to you, Minister.
Thank you, Honourable Chairperson. Our department doesn't support lab-grown diamonds at all. We think they're a spoiler to the diamond sector. So you can't expect a strategy from us to promote lab-grown diamonds. Our strategy, that's why we're working with the diamond sector, is to promote natural diamonds. Because natural diamonds are loved forever. Natural diamonds are forever. Lab-grown diamonds are instant. So we are supporting the marketing of natural diamonds as a department. We work with producers. Countries like Botswana, all the countries in the African continent, did accept the Luanda Accord. So it's not a South African issue, it is a continental issue to support what has been admitted globally by diamond producers and deposit the 1% of revenue to the national marketing and global marketing entity, which will market global natural diamonds everywhere. And while monitoring the trends, you'll find that the lab-grown diamonds are growing mainly in the United States. In the East, they have not taken the route. If you go to China, India, all those areas, you will not find lab-grown diamond taking more than 5% of the market. The problem is coming from the West, and we're monitoring that as a country and as the whole market. That's why the question of the Kimberley processing is very important in terms of ensuring that these are genuine natural diamonds. You can trace the originality of the diamonds, where they were mined, and so forth. We are aware of the fact that EU, for example, have started another process where they are trying to isolate Russian diamonds. It's their fight, it's not our fight, but Russia is the biggest diamond producer in the world, followed by Botswana. Okay, so we are quite keen to work with other producers as we promote our own diamond production in South Africa and protect it.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now move to question 263, asked by Honourable Motweni, and it's about unrehabilitated farms. Thank you.
No, thank you very much, Madam Tweed. We do not have a record of such statistics. We don't have that. The reason for that is we will need a combined effort between our department and the Department of Agriculture, as they are having the list of all farms in the country. We don't have a list of all farms. We have a list of mining sites in the country. So if we were following through your question, we'll have to work with the Department of Agriculture, get their statistics, and begin to compare notes. When a mining company signs an agreement with a landowner, there is a provision in the agreement that would cover rehabilitation obligations. I've been before this House talking about rehabilitation, I know that rehabilitation is broken into two. There's what we call concurrent rehabilitation for operational mines. And there is rehabilitation of ownerless and derelict mines, which is a legacy of apartheid, where there was no regulation about rehabilitation, and therefore the state is grandfathering rehabilitation of those ownerless and derelict mines. So where we are doing, where these are not honored, there is a recourse for the landowner. And through the escalation to the department or through the courts, we do enforce rehabilitation. What I can make as an observation, if you go to open cast mining, for example, I will give an example of coal mining. It's easy to rehabilitate land to as close as possible to the pre-mining quality. Because it's an open cast, it is not easy for deep mines because there you have drill shaft, you have to close those shafts and seal them to rehabilitate. Now, so there's no qualification has been done by the department as this has not been a generic complaint from the farmers. They are protected by lease provision that they enter into mining companies, and when any evidence has been brought to our attention, the assessment will be conducted in consultation with the affected farmers. In simple terms, statistics of which farm has been affected is not, we don't have those statistics. When we work with agriculture, we can comply with that statistics.
Thank you very much, Minister. Honourable Motweni, do you have a follow-up?
Yes, thank you very much, Chair. I do have a follow-up. Minister, it's quite worrying that your department does not have statistics of such, but I can tell you sitting here, there are many unrehabilitated farms where mining activities took place. If you move to the area in the northwest around Bloemhof area, there's so many farms that are not used because they were used for mining activities. So you do indeed have those obligations of rehabilitations with those people that come to apply, but they do not see to it that they do rehabilitate. Now, my question, Minister, is that if you find such instances where communities and or farming areas are not rehabilitated because of mining activities, what is the process that those that are involved can take to approach the department? Because they would normally approach the Department of Agriculture. The Department of Agriculture will just duck and dive, not actually saying, let's go and approach the relevant people so that they can do it through escalation it or enforcing it through the courts so that such rehabilitation happens. But thanks very much for that.
No, we're aware of that. That's why when we reported here, this was included, we said we discovered 6,100 ownerless and derelict mines. Those ownerless and derelict mines, including asbestos mines in the Northern Cape, by the way, have no owners. Those are the mining areas which are grandfathered by the state. And last semester, we gave a report for 2004. For 2024, we have closed 410 holdings in that year. It depends on the budget allocated to us to do the closure of holdings. So we are aware that there will be areas that were mined, that were left. That is falling under derelict and ownerless mines. But if it is a mining company that is operational, it has no way of not rehabilitating because that is part of the licensing conditions. And that's why we have broken rehabilitation into two, concurrent and derelict and ownerless.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now move to Honourable Modise for the next follow-up.
No, thanks, Chair. You know, Minister, with the opportunity given by Parliament to chair the select committee that deals with mineral and petroleum resources, some of the things that you are talking about are reality. We have gone on the ground, we have seen them firsthand. And the unfortunate part is that indeed there are mines that belong to farms that are privately owned and mines that belong to the land that is owned by the state, which most of the time, the ones that are owned by the state, they really go ownerless. You see that program of rehabilitating them, which is difficult to do with a privately owned land. And I wanted to check if you've got the numbers, and you've already given it 6,100 plus numbers in terms of mines that need to be rehabilitated and so on. So it will be a waste of time to ask a follow-up question because it speaks mainly to those derelict and ownerless mines and the numbers that you already given. So I want to thank you for that.
Thank you very much, Honourable Modise. Over to you, Minister.
I'm just giving credit here. Thank you very much. But the reality of the matter is any information that can help us follow up on rehabilitation, please provide it to us, because we are given a responsibility by law to enforce rehabilitation. That's why, for example, we're following up the rehabilitation of a quarry in Tanun here. And we follow it through because it's a danger to society. We discovered that it's actually opened by the municipality. We'll have to talk to the Cape Town municipality to rehabilitate that quarry because when it is raining, it's filled with water and kids run into that water. And we will follow that through. It's not derelict, it is not ownerless because the body that opened it is still around. So all I'm saying is that if there's information, do provide us with that information, we'll follow it through.
Thank you very much, Minister. We now move to Honourable Brits from the DA.
Good afternoon again, Honourable Minister. Now, Minister, on the topic of unrehabilitated mining property, what are your long-term plans for derelict and unclaimed mines that, on paper, have no legal owners? These abandoned sites pose serious environmental, safety and financial risks, all of which currently fall on government and ultimately the taxpayer. Will you commit to either selling or transferring these properties to responsible investors so that the burden is no longer carried by the state and the taxpayers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Honourable Brits. Over to you, Minister.
It depends on the state of an ownerless and derelict mine. Let me give you an example. You cannot sell an asbestos mine to an investor. Asbestos mining is banned in this country, and the state has the responsibility to rehabilitate those neglected asbestos mines. That is where the category of ownerless and derelict mines is. It is in mines that had owners, and those owners cannot be traced. Let me remind you, because I look at your head, I think you will know this, that for the longest of time, mining was governed by 7 companies. 7 companies. Of those 7 companies, only 2 still exist. All the others have disappeared. For example, at least you can trace JCI. It is no longer there, but you can still trace it. You can trace Anglo-American. Anglo-Fal has disappeared and melted into ARM, bigger part of it. And those we can trace. But there are mines that we cannot trace the owner at all. And therefore, that is a derelict and an ownerless mine. We rehabilitate it as the state. The plan is to close all the 6,100 holdings that we found. We are doing that, but the pace depends on the budget allocated for that work. So I cannot say by year 2050 will it be through. I can't say that. I'm saying the state will continue rehabilitating derelict and ownerless mines. Current mines, concurrent rehabilitation will happen.
Thank you very much, Minister. The last follow-up will be from Honourable van den Berg from the Freedom Front Plus.
Good afternoon, Minister. Minister, you yourself have just spoken in a previous question to the diminishing role of natural diamonds, yet we are maintaining a very expensive state diamond regulator, but we will leave that for another day. Due to the scale of the operations and the longevity of these operations, some mining areas will just never be able to be rehabilitated. I'm referring to mine dumps like the Kimberley mine dump, now more than 20 stories high, with a larger footprint than the business center of town itself. It will never, ever be able to be rehabilitated. We have the same problem at Alexander Bay. Now, will you hold mining companies like the De Beers Group responsible for this failure to rehabilitate? And what options are left to the department as these open mine dumps are polluting the air with harmful dust, even influencing the weather, and the area will never again be able to be used for instance, farming? Thank you.
And let me help you with the regulator first. It's not a diamond regulator. It's state diamond and precious metals regulator. So it is not just regulating diamonds, it regulates all precious metals. That is what that regulator does. Once you understand that, you will remove the term that an expensive regulator, regulating a declining sector. It regulates everything, including PGMs, which are growing. It regulates gold, it regulates all the precious metals. That's why it is the state diamond and precious metal regulator. Take that, write it down in your book. Now, the question is whether areas like Kimberley will be rehabilitated. Our assumption is that every mining area must be rehabilitated. That is our starting point. We'll have a fight with De Beers, which opens a big hole in Kimberley and leaves it decorated. It becomes a tourist attraction. Once it becomes a tourist attraction, to a great extent, it is rehabilitated because it is playing a different economic role in society rather than just a hole in the ground. And every other hole in the ground will have to be rehabilitated. We have been raising that question with De Beers. For example, they are mining Venetia now. It's a big open cast. They are going underground. And we are raising the issue with them that come up with rehabilitation plans that talk to this issue. Where there is a lacuna is where the law doesn't get applicable retrospectively. It kicks in at the time of being passed by Parliament. Once that law is passed by Parliament, the effectivity of that law kicks in. Retrospective, it does not apply. So we are hoping that every mine will be rehabilitated at one point or another. That will be long after my time. I'm hoping that we'll have ministers who are very passionate about rehabilitation and work together with institutions like MINTEC, CGS to rehabilitate mining areas. That is what we are investing in.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you, Minister Mantashe. We move now to question 238, which will be asked by the Northern Cape, represented by Honorable van den Berg once more. Honorable van den Berg.
Thank you, Chair, but I think we must just give the Minister a chance to first answer the question. Thanks.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just excited to see the Minister. Minister, we hand over to you.
No. Honorable van der Berg would have done himself a favor if he asked this question to the Minister of Electricity and Energy. The green hydrogen is an energy technology. It's not a mining technology. I will invite him to ask a question when we talk about oil drilling in the Orange Basin. But this question doesn't belong to this committee. It belongs to the electricity subcommittee.
Thank you. Thanks for the response, Honorable van den Berg.
Thank you, Chair. So noted. Remember, it was part of your department. I think that is when we sent the question out. I will then do that. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you, Honorable van den Berg. We learn every day. I just made a mistake myself. So we move to the province of Northwest and invite Honorable Setole.
No, thank you very much, Chairperson. Let me just take this opportunity to thank the Minister that is always available when we call him to this house to come and answer the questions. I don't have any follow-up question. I'm covered, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Setole. I just want to be thorough, so let me do this. Allow me to do it. We thank you so much for the comment. Let's invite the province of Mpumalanga, represented by Honorable Boshoff.
Thank you very much, Honourable Acting Chair. In light of what Minister Mantashe has just said, that it belongs to Honourable Ramahopa's department, I will keep my follow-up question in abeyance and direct it to him. Thank you very much. He's not in the House, so it will be done in writing. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honourable Boshoff. I don't know if Honourable Kennedy is on the line. Is Honourable Kennedy on the line? Oh, Honourable Krike.
Thank you, Chair. I will follow suit. We'll give you a break this time, Mr. Minister. You've worked hard this afternoon, and we wish you a good evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Honourable Gerike. It therefore means, Honourable van den Berg, all of us did not pick it up, that this question belongs to energy and electricity and not mineral and petroleum resources. So it's not only your fault. Let's move along and we'll go to question 254, Minister, the very last question for the day.
Thank you, Honorable Chairperson, members. The question is spin-offs of onshore and onshore natural gas exploration. Were there any economic benefits for the areas close to where such exploration is taking place? Onshore will be achieved. If not, why not, and so forth. South Africa is endowed with oil and gas. This is the most unexploited sector of the economy today. And the Petroleum Agency estimates that the country holds 27 billion barrels and 60 trillion cubic feet of oil and gas, respectively. The estimate of the onshore exceeds 200 TCF of prospective shale gas resources, biogenic gas, and coal bed methane. I must report here that we've just visited 3 plants of gas, one in the Free State, which is a gas and helium plant next to Tennyson. They call it Virginia. It's not Virginia, it's in Tennyson. And we've seen the methane gas plant in Lipalale in Limpopo. We've also seen a huge gas plant in Amersfoort, which was quantified at 60 CF, which is more than 5 times more than what sustained Petro SA at the beginning. So that is the endowment that we're having as a country. Based on the ongoing acreage valuation exercise by PASA, which has covered about 50% of the country's acreage to date, the potential value of conventional prospective oil and gas resources is estimated at $100 billion. For prospective unconventional resources, which include shale gas and coal-bed methane, potential is estimated at $50 billion. Combined, this potential value equates to estimated $150 billion, which is 2.7 trillion rand. That is the potential we're having in these deposits, let alone the potential monetary value. The gas potential outlined above is very significant from a national security perspective. And we're raising this issue because there is a general discussion of possible gas cliff in the near future. We say we will fall into that cliff if we don't exploit our own deposits. But if we want to avoid that cliff, we will have to exploit our own deposits. And that is the fight we're having at hand. And we must remember that Total Energies has drilled wells with a substantial economic benefit in the Southern Cape. And that is the gas we're having as a country. And our view is that unless we exploit our oil and gas, we'll have all sorts of complications. And we have estimated it that if we can exploit, make a breakthrough in oil and gas, the growth level of our country will touch 5 to 8% of the GDP. We'll move from a low growth trajectory to a reasonable growth trajectory as a country. But it requires all of us to appreciate the fact that foreign-funded NGOs block development and hide beyond environmental demands. And it's a fight that we're having in our hands every day. We are inviting Parliament to be part of that fight because it is the future of the country. It will help the economy of the country. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mantashe. Let's move to the province of the Eastern Cape and check with Honorable Nodata if there's a follow-up or comment.
Thank you, Chairperson. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, Honorable Minister from the Home of Legends. Thank you so much for the response. It was comprehensive enough. Listening to your response, it is clear that the exploration of natural gases will be positive, will have positive spin-offs to the economy. But I just want to ask if there are any intentions from the department to speed up exploration of natural gases. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Minister?
On the part of the department, we're not just having intentions. We are accelerating. That's why I can point you to the Southern Cape, 3.7 TCF of gas discovered already. That's why I can point you to 3 plants inland of gas. It's because we are doing the work. PASA does that, and we are accelerating it. And the only part of the question that I think I must add is whether people benefit when they search. There's only one example that we can show you. You go to Mossel Bay. Mossel Bay was an arid area until Petro SA was established there, and it is today a secondary city. And that's what exploitation of petroleum products will do to our economy.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you for your response. Let's move back to the province of Northern Cape. Honorable Mukai.
Thank you very much, Honorable Acting Chair, and good afternoon to the Honorable Minister. Minister, we appreciate your response, very elaborate. And I want to say, Minister, responsible gas exploration has the potential, as you've elaborated, to unlock a massive economic and employment boom in South Africa, something we desperately need in terms of jobs. Yet government legislation and red tape are holding back billions in potential foreign investment. What concrete steps, Honorable Minister, is your department taking to remove these barriers and make South Africa truly investor-friendly in the natural gas sector? Thank you very much, Honorable Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Mukai. Minister.
I'm not sure of this red tape and obstacles. All I know is that we're in court every week, not taken by government. We're taken to court by foreign-funded NGOs. And our suggestion has been we need to develop rules that force NGOs to be registered and declare their source of funding. There is no government that has taken and blocked development of oil and gas. Yes, we'll have issues with DFFE from time to time. It's their responsibility. But what we are emphasizing even to DFFE is that you can never counterpose economics and ecology. You must integrate the two to have a working economy. Do economic development responsible, protect the ecology without blocking development. Once we get that balance right, I think we're going to be a corner in this case. So our view is that this is where the potential is, and the state and the country and the people will benefit in the exploitation of oil and gas in the country.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mantashe. Let's move to the province of the Eastern Cape and invite Honorable Machobeni.
Thank you, Acting Speaker. Good evening, Honorable Minister. I appreciate your response, Honorable Minister, but what are the environmental and economic risks associated with the exploitation of offshore and onshore natural gas for those areas which are close to where the exploration is taking place? And what measures have you put in place to mitigate against such risks? Thank you very much.
Thank you, Honorable Machobeni. Honorable Mantashe.
Thank you, Chairperson. Any exploration for petroleum and mining, by the way, you never get a license again to get environmental assessment impact certificate and you get a water license. Once you are when we say you have a license, you have met all those, you have ticked all those boxes. So the risks are mitigated in that process. You know, we went to Lipalale, we went to a methane gas plant. It is fractured like Karo. The only difference is that that gas is not on hard rock, it is on coal beds. So it doesn't cause any damage there. All we are saying is that DFFE has a responsibility to give us regulations to ensure that we don't damage water, we don't damage the environment. But those regulations must not stop development. That is the only argument we're tabling. Development must go ahead, but we must be forced to do development responsibly. And that is it. And therefore, our view is that because, let me give you an example. You go to the Orange Mouth. Are you from the Northern Cape?
Eastern Cape.
You must go to the Northern Cape. If you go to the Orange Basin in the Northern Cape, north of it, Namibia has drilled 24 wells of oil, and it is regarded as the fastest growing economy in Southern Africa. We cannot drill 3 whole wells that we wanted to drill in the south in our waters. And that is where the difference is, that we are watching development across our borders. We can't touch it here because we are holier than thou.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mantashe. And the final speaker for the day is Honorable Mhlongo.
Thank you, Chair, and afternoon, Minister. Our question is, given that South Africa's sedimentary basins differ significantly in age, depth, and hydrocarbons potential, what measures are in place to ensure that the prioritization of onshore and offshore gas exploration areas such as Karoo and Otanika basins is guided by independent geological assessment rather than commercial lobbying, and that the resulting seismic and core sampling data are shared with South African institutions like MINSCEC, the Council of Geoscience, and universities to build national expertise and reduce reliance on foreign consultants? Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Let's invite you to respond to Mamsong.
Thank you very much. There's a term that always confuses me called independent. Independent of what? Because half the time when people talk of independent, they want to keep a distance with the state. But it's not independent, it's influenced by all sorts of ideological formations outside of the state. I want to leave that question so that you think about it carefully into the future. But what is important is that, I don't know if you read in today's newspapers that DFFE has signed off the regulation for the shale gas exploration. It will have to be gazetted. Once it is gazetted, we'll lift the moratorium. That is the strict chain of events that we follow when we do exploration. It's not one department regulating exploration. We depend on the next department doing its part and the other one. We get those of DFFE, we got of water and sanitation much earlier, so that drilling for gas in the Karoo must not interfere with quality of water. All those are in the rules and in the regulation. And anybody who applies for a license will have to meet those regulations as stipulated by another department, not by our department. The court stopped us and said, don't develop the regulations. You are responsible for the operation. Another department must do it, and we've complied with that.
Thank you so much, Honorable Mantashe. What's happening, Honorable Van den Berg?
Chair, may I, if you will allow me, rise regarding the previous question? May
I allow you what?
Regarding the previous question that the minister has denied, I wish to mention that the question was towards hydrogen, green energy as a fuel, and he did not answer that question. He, however, did react to the Just Energy program that is simply a part of that.
But you are hijacking my platform, Honorable Van den Berg. If I wanted to understand why you are standing up when you are already engaging on the reason you are standing up, right? I want to believe, and this is my understanding, the question that you have asked the minister would have been submitted in time. They would have gone through the question. And he's saying, from your question, it does not fall within the mandate of his department. If there's anything, I'm sure you can do it in writing to complain. I'm sure you can complain in writing, but you have provoked a response. Let me give him a chance as well.
I answered your question, Honorable Van den Berg. I said green hydrogen is energy. The clean energy technologies is energy. That question in its entirety belongs to the Department of Electricity and Energy.
Thank you.
We don't have green energy in our department.
Thank you. In fact, Honorable Van den Berg, you accept when the minister says, when you come back and say, because the department was together, mineral and energy at a particular time, you felt that the question still belongs there. Anyone else, you can sit down, Minister, thank you. Anyone else who came? I want to finish this, Minister. Honorable Van den Berg, everyone who came after you, Honorable Sithole, Honorable Boshoff, and Honorable Kerike, they all indicated that their follow-up questions were based on the initial question. And on the basis that the initial question is now referred to the minister that was here earlier, they no longer have a follow-up question. It cannot be that now you want to come and introduce a different question. Do it in writing, send it to Minister Ramokgopa, he will come here and respond. And in fact, you have an opportunity far better than most of members here, because Minister Mantashe and Minister Ramokgopa sit in the committee that you are part of. You can ask these questions more than most of members here. So let's leave it there. Let me take this opportunity, honorable members, to thank Honorable Ramokgopa in his absentia, Minister Mantashe, who is still with us, and the Deputy Minister Mgina, who's been sitting here before the sitting started, and we were even concluding she's still seated. And thank all those who had logged in virtually. And also want to say, Honorable Molokome and the team that went to oversight, I think you were in the Free State, want to thank you that you went to oversight, you came back, and you still found yourself here in the House. That's commitment and that shows leadership. Thank you very much. Honorable members, the House is adjourned.
Recording stopped.